This
Advocate Kumar
conference will
Saurabh
now
Singh
be
ji,
recorded.
Udayraj ji, and Snehal bhai. Praveen bhai has given me an opportunity to discuss about the RRC, which is being organized by WIRC. And this is the first ever RRC. In the last 2 years, 2.5 years, we have been trying to have this RRC, but because of one reason or other, especially because of the pandemic, we could not go ahead with this. Earlier, we decided to have this RRC at Goa on this in the end of May. It is 29th, 30th, 31st of May. It was decided, but everything was finalized. But because of the pandemic, it was supposed to be postponed. And this time, in fact, our chairman Manish bhai was also so determined. He said कि विकास भाई कुछ भी हो अपने को RRC तो ये करना ही है. And the support that he had कि भाई कुछ भी registration आएगा कैसे भी आएगा हम लोग करेंगे. And then there was a great support from our team, including Praveen sir, then Snehal bhai is there, Hemant bhai was there, Atul ji. So it was like right from planning and everything. So finally, we could conceptualize this RRC, which is going to take place from 27th of August, 27, 28, and 29. This will be starting afternoon 27th and would be culminating on 29th afternoon. That is Friday, Saturday, Sunday at Anand Madhuban Resort near. This is 30 kilometers from Baroda Airport and around 70 kilometers from Ahmedabad Airport. Also, it can be reached directly from Mumbai and all other places, but through rail also. And the faculties which we are having is on 27th. The topics and faculties, let me discuss with you. On 27th, we would be having Ashish Makhija ji. He would be discussing on conduct the challenges being faced by IPs while conducting the CIRP and different case studies. And also, we would be having this faculty as Advocate CS Nipun Singhvi. He would be discussing the litigations in CIRP. And the next day, that is on 28th, we would be having Mr. K.R. Jinan, who is ex-judicial member NCLT Kolkata, and he is now into practice. So he would be discussing about the liquidation as a going concern. Thereafter, we are also having Mr. Brugesh Amin, who would be discussing about prepack, and Mr. Sanjeev Pandey, who would be discussing on prepack from the banker's perspective. Then we are having another faculty, Mr. Krishan Jain. He is from Chandigarh and is a very famous faculty in the northern part of the country. He would be discussing on the liquidation as a going concern. We are also having one Mr. Advocate Mr. Pulkit Devda from Delhi. He would be dealing on individual insolvency and personal guarantee. The beauty of this RRC is that every session before that we would be having a 90 minutes group discussion on every topic. We would be having a 90 minutes group discussion wherein the issues which are being faced by the IPs, the practical issues, those issues are to be raised beforehand. Even subsequently at the program also we can raise those issues. But if we can get the issues beforehand, we can have good preparation on that. And we'll have a interactive session, group discussions, every session, 90-minute group discussion and 90-minute presentation by the faculty. And the other good thing is almost all the faculties are going to be there for almost all the 3 days with us. So, and not only that, we also would be having a great networking opportunity amongst each other. We would be learning from the experiences of each other. And almost till now, we have got almost 45 registrations in the last 4-5 days. And the target is 60 only. So we would be having not more than 60. In this, we have a few registrations from Bangalore, from Coimbatore, Delhi, and Mumbai, Ahmedabad, Baroda, Surat. So hopefully, maybe in a day or two, we would be closing the registrations also. So our target was like 23rd, we should close the registration, and it seems like we will be bang on the target. So I request all the members to please join, and this would be a great learning for all of us, and not only great learning but also a great fellowship and networking opportunity. Thank you very much. I hand over to Praveen ji. Thank you, sir. Praveen bhai.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much for coming to our study group. It's your study group only, WRC study group, IBC study group. We request you to always be with us. And
Yes, sir.
now today's session we have specially is on the RP difficulties which we face in the remuneration. The remuneration has become low and banks keep on arguing or negotiating at each and every stage. So that's why we have two stalwart speakers. Both are RP, both are the members from the day one of the study group. They are both qualified from 2017 onwards. So we have a meeting right of the what are the issues faced in the remuneration and how to tackle the same. And first to understand and then how to tackle the same. Plus there are various decisions of the NCLT on this matter. So without spending any time further, I'll request Uday Bhai and Snehal Bhai to take up one of the one. I have prepared some questions. So if you can or otherwise you can have a first note and then we can have a question answer. I'll request Uday and Snehal to take over. Hello.
Thank you, Praveen, and thank you, Vikas ji, and all the members which are here. Snehal is there with me, so we can start with
Uday, I've got my
questions
camera
also.
on.
Yes. हाँ Snehal.
My कैमरा ऑफ रखा हुआ है, बैंडविड्थ का इशू है शायद, तो कैमरा ऑफ रख के I will be there. Yes.
Yes. So I don't feel there is a need to go to the basics of fees, how they are to be calculated, what is the situation out there in the market, and all that. So I think we can develop this whole in a matter of a chat between all of us, and we can start with the questions I feel which are
So,
already framed.
Uday, before we go into Uday, Uday, before we go into discussion, let's understand the basic circular, what it aims for, and what are the bases of this circular. Then we can, I think, have an interaction on the points. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So I
Yes,
think
you can go ahead. Neil, on that. I thought
so
that
I think all of us here have already had a chance to. Sorry. Yeah. So the circular on monetary penalties that is to be imposed on the by the insolvency professional agency, which came, which was notified on 28th July. What it aims at and what is the idea, the basis for coming out of this circular. So what we all need to understand is that this circular basically is for IPA. So all the three IPA, the IBB.
Snehal bhai, your voice is lost. It is not audible.
Intent initial, what it seems to be to bring this circular is to have a what will that be levied. So this circular get all the three IPAs on the same platform in case of a disciplinary action where monetary penalty is levied. The upper and lower band is be defined and that be levied on the IPA who against whom a disciplinary action is initiated. So before going into these penalty points, Uday, I think we should first of all discuss that this will come into play when IPA will basically decide to levy monetary penalty for the default that has been done by the IPs. And for that, a disciplinary committee will be following the due process of taking action before this penalty is levied. Right, Uday? Uday?
Yes, I endorse the view.
So practically, this basis, first of all, we all need to understand that this circular is for IPA. They have to get their bylaws amended in which they have to get this contravention and monetary penalty embedded, so that they can levy and the uniformity will be achieved amongst the IPAs for levying of penalty. As a IPA, we need to understand the disciplinary process. So the inspection or a suo motu action that can be taken for looking into the IP's work. Thereafter, IP will be issued a so cause notice. He will be given a chance to represent himself. He will be given a chance to represent in person also. And after all this, if they are not able to satisfy the IPA that the contravention has not happened, in view of which the IPA will levy the said penalty. Right? Yes, Uday, you have anything to say on this?
Yeah, I would not go into the issue of penalties in this particular lecture, Snehal Bhai. I think we are discussing the issue of professional fees of or issues in the fees charged by the insolvency professional in while working as an IRP, RP, or as a liquidator, or as a personal insolvency. So on penalties issue, I think I would wait till how the whole process works, whether each and every case will be penalized and all that. So I will keep my fingers crossed at present, because there could be many irregularities which have been corrected by the IPs while in the process, how it will be looked at and all that. So let us see. I will keep my fingers crossed about it.
Okay. So then you initiate the conversation for that for me to follow you then, Uday. Uday.
Yes. So I will just bring your kind attention to one circular which was issued by IBBI on 12th of June 2018, which talked about fees and other expenses incurred for CIRP. That is one circular which talks about fees. And then there is one guidance which has been issued by CP, which talks about best practices on payment of fee and reimbursement of out-of-pocket expenses. So we can find these two documents as a guidance for what is the fee that one can charge, what can be the basis for it, and how to justify a particular fee. We have seen that in the past, wherever the issue of deciding of fees has come up with any NCLT, you must have seen NCLT orders fixing fee. So what happens behind those orders is NCLT on its own, we have not seen doing it on their own. They ask IBBI or an IPA to appoint a panel of insolvency professionals to whom this matter gets referred, and then they recommend a particular fee. A couple of my colleagues have been on such committees in Delhi, which are non-standing type of committees for a particular case only, and they provide their opinion and proceed. So having said that, the fees issue has been a contentious issue from day one, about large cases being able to command a fee of 1 crore of rupees a month, to insolvency professionals being required to bid at the lowest price of even 25-30,000 rupees a month also. So having said that, we may not be guiding ourselves into a structured conversation in this unless we have certain questions and guidance before us. So I suggest that Pravinji had certain questions framed. So let us start our discussion based on those questions. And then as questions or more questions come up, I will try to address it according to my little experience, and also request Snehal Bhai and others also to participate in the same. So that is what I would open this conversation. Snehal Bhai, over to you.
Yeah. So what you say that on the fee part, I agree on that aspect. But if we have frame some question, let's first have a issue based instead of just going and giving the preliminary views of ours on it. Praveen Bhai has framed the question. Who has framed the question
I
on
have
this? Uday?
some basic questions to begin with. I have framed 4-5 questions so that one can
Right.
start the ball rolling, or some few questions just for
Right.
to begin with, sir. And this is not an end; it are more like a filler sort of, because when the other
Yes.
member asks,
So,
so we can stop, or anybody can ask further questions on that. So basically, my questions are: initially, the fees level at 2-3 years back when the IBC started, they was quite normal, and now after negotiations, it have come down drastically. Whether acceptable or not acceptable, the fees have come down even to 50,000 and less, as pointed out by Uday. So at this level, and with the vis-a-vis on the other end, the requirements are going up day by day. Reporting responsibility, the law now we cannot take any more stand that we are new to it or something like that. So this is the first very question, that fees level have come down while the responsibilities have gone up. So what the group leaders or the speakers for the day have to say anything, or what other members have to say? This meeting is not restricted to only group members. We need to hear it from the other IPs also.
yeah. To take it forward, Praveen ji, that in the initial days when this profession was taking its shape, the fees that were quoted and the fees that has come down now drastically from the earnest version. What we need to understand is what is the realistically the role of a IP that is envisaged, and accordingly how much is the fees that we should charge. It has gone down drastically. It is just because people in this profession has entered, there is a competition that has entered, and the newer entrant are actually novice, and they are actually looking forward to take assignment. I get many times a call कि sir free में भी करने को तैयार है. So this profession doesn't call for all this. When you have to look at the fee structure has to based on your time that you are devoting, and accordingly you have to take the control of the business of the CD, and then you have to run. So if you actually undercut and go, you will not survive. In my view, the drastic fall in the revenue may be there because initially there was a cream that was there where no one knew how to price the transaction. But today, everyone is aware that what type of resources will be required, how much timelines will be required, and accordingly, the pricing will be done for each transaction. And if it is fits the RP capability to work on the transaction, probably it's a demand and supply that will prevail, and accordingly we work on it. Uday, what is your view? Keep it open for others to have a view on this then.
I think let us go by the questions framed and then try to reply
So
it
on the same question,
in a more
Uday,
structured
your
way.
view on the same question that it has fallen drastically. Do you think it has fallen drastically, or it is taking actual pricing is coming, realistic pricing is coming into play?
No, there is certainly pressure on the fees, no doubt about it. Is it drastic? Yes, to some extent it is drastic. But good accounts and accounts where you require a lot of energy and effort are still commanding reasonable fees, I can say. They are not excessive, but reasonable fees are commanded. However, due to the compliance that is required, one may find it very difficult, a tight rope walk, what we call it. So let us see how whole thing proceeds. Uh, Personally, I have seen fees coming down to by about 30 to 50%, no doubt about it. But I don't see it falling beyond that. वो फ्री में काम करना और 50,000 में काम करना वाला बात भी चलता रहेगा. But still the profession will survive. That is what I feel.
Sir, if I
Yes.
can interrupt,
Yes, sir.
basically
It
what
is
I think कि फीस थोड़ा नीचे पहले चला गया, पर अभी रियलाइज हो रहा है लोगों को कितना कंप्लायंस का काम आ रहा है और इतना ज्यादा हेडेक हो रहा है कि पीपल हैव स्टार्टेड टू थिंक कि नहीं अभी अपने को रेगुलर प्राइस में जाना है. मेरे आई हैव सीन वन पर्सन हु हैज टेकन वन अकाउंट ऑफ द बेस्ट शेड्यूल बैंक and he has taken 3 personal guarantor at a 50,000 rupees lump sum. Now, once he will start the work, then he will realize कि where he is landing. एक भी कोर्ट का केस आ गया, कुछ आ गया, तो
हेलो
हाँ सर.
I think we are
Hello.
missing him. Mahesh bhai.
हाँ विकास
Yes, Mahesh bhai.
स्टॉप हो जाएगा.
सर
तो धीरे धीरे ऑटोमेटिकली एक बार नीचे सबको झटका आया है. एंड आई थिंक इफ यू रिमेन इन एकदम इक्विलिब्रियम.
Right. Right, Mahesh bhai. You are perfectly correct. The things are taking shape. It is stabilizing. Fee structure will also stabilize. The fees higher or lower. It is all meant on the person to person. So yes, the floor is open for discussion. We can
सर
have on
इसमें
the
प्रॉब्लम
any
ये आ
other
रहा है.
member would like to share their view.
स्नेहल जी,
Yes, Mahesh bhai.
स्नेहल जी, मेरे को प्रॉब्लम एक आ रहा है कि इसमें जो नए आदमी जो आके फीस को कट कर रहे हैं, घुस रहे हैं अंदर,
बोलो
and
बोलो
then
Mahesh
we'll
bhai.
have a problem कि whether we are remain in business or we are getting out. Because अभी I was talking to another IP who was अभी एक बैंक ने 25 एप्लीकेशन निकाला था and he got a call कि 20,000 रुपीज में करना है तो we'll give you the work. If all the people, this type of people goes, then we may have to wait for some time till we start to get our price.
Mahesh bhai, I always believe and I always have followed. मेरे प्राइस में काम आता है, मैं लेता हूँ, काम आता ही है. Look, if you are giving proper service, proper thing, someone who is undercutting will not survive. Let him do it at that cost. Otherwise, if he is able to do it, other work is there. Work, I don't think there is a dearth of work in our field at this point of time. Only thing is right place. We have to pitch to get that thing, and we will get the fees also.
Correct.
Manoj ji,
Snehal
Manoj
bhai.
Agarwal, any point on this? So we have Manoj
I want to
Agarwal
share
also.
something. Praveen bhai, I want to share something based on my
Arey,
practical
always
experience.
welcome, sir. Always welcome, sir.
Sir, let us understand this problem. Our insolvency profession is a no exception to the other fields of working in our chartered accountancy, I would say.
So
So what is
low,
happening?
it is a low. What you said? Repeat, please.
In terms of fee only, sir. I am talking only and only in terms of fee.
Yes,
Okay.
sir. No, but
In
your
terms-
sentence, first sentence I could not understand.
Acha,
Please
I
repeat.
say that in terms of fee, our profession of insolvency is no exception to the other services that we are providing in the field of chartered accountancy. So what
Correct.
has happened actually? What is happening? People see that हमको हमारा प्रोफाइल मजबूत करना है, हमारा एक्सपीरियंस नहीं है, ठीक है, तो वो कुछ भी फी में काम लेने को एक बार रेडी हो जाते हैं. What the people are doing is, see, आप मुंबई बोल रहे हैं, मुंबई people are this charging 50,000 लोवेस्ट में भी. अहमदाबाद में मैंने देखे अभी कुछ केस 30,000 में भी CIRP के केस गए. 30,000. वी कैन नॉट इमेजिन दैट कि 30,000 में कोई आदमी कैसे काम तो छोड़िए, उसको मतलब कुछ भी नहीं कर पाएगा. बट दैट इज व्हाट द ग्राउंड रियलिटी इज. अब क्या होता है, द व्हाई दिस प्रॉब्लम इज कमिंग अप, bankers are empanelling the professionals. Now the bankers have the system कि अब पहले तो किसी का भी एक भी केस नहीं किया था, ऑल वर एट द सेम लेवल, तो किसी का भी एम्पेनलमेंट हो जाता था. अभी जैसे ही नए आईपीज अंदर आ रहे हैं या जैसे भी उन लोगों को एम्पेनलमेंट होना है, कैसे कैसे भी करके एम्पेनलमेंट करवा रहे, तो उनको चाहिए 2 केस आपने किए हुए होने चाहिए, 3 केसेस किए हुए होने चाहिए. तो पीपल आर ट्राइंग टू यूज देयर गुड ऑफिसेज और इन्फ्लुएंसेस और रिलेशंस और व्हाटसोएवर, और वो किसी भी कीमत में लेने को तैयार है. ये अहमदाबाद के अंदर अभी रिसेंट एक केस था जिसके अंदर एक्स बैंकर थे, बैंक से अभी रिटायरमेंट लिया था वॉलंटरी थोड़े टाइम पहले. देन वो पीएनबी का एक केस था, उन्होंने ओनली 30,000 रुपीज के अंदर उसको एक्सेप्ट किया. ठीक है, वही काम लाख रुपए के नीचे कोई भी करना नहीं चाहेगा शायद. तो अब सब लोग, उनको अगर कोई बात करो तो वो बोलेंगे कि हमको तो अंदर आना है, क्या करेंगे. बट नोबडी अंडरस्टैंड्स कि हर बार कोई ना कोई नया तो आने ही वाला है. एंड दूसरा चैलेंज क्या आता है, जब बैंकर्स से आप बात करेंगे, बैंकर्स बोलते हैं और नॉर्मल एवरेज केसेस, एक्सेप्शनली केस है, वहां तो टेंडरिंग और रेट्स की या कोटेशंस की बात ही नहीं होती. वो कुछ बड़ी फर्म्स को सेलेक्ट करके उनके साथ ही डिस्कस करने वाले. तो जो ऑलरेडी सेटल्ड है, बड़ा काम लेके बैठे हैं, शायद उनको एक चैलेंज, अलग लेवल का चैलेंज है. दूसरे जो न्यू एंट्रेंट्स है, जो इसके अंदर आने वाले हैं, या जो ऑलरेडी कुछ कम काम लेके बैठे हैं, उनके चैलेंजेस थोड़े से अलग होते हैं। तो उनको तो फी का बहुत बड़ा चैलेंज वहां पे आता है, क्योंकि उनको हमेशा बिडिंग प्रोसेस से ही जाना है, कोटेशन प्रोसेस से ही जाना है। तो कोटेशन बहुत बड़ा चैलेंज होता है। बैंकर्स बोलते हैं हम लोगों को सीबीसी गाइडलाइंस एप्लीकेबल होती है, तो हम लोग जो लोवेस्ट आएगा उसी को हम दे सकते हैं। दूसरा, एज ए इंसॉल्वेंसी प्रोफेशनल्स ऑल्सो वी आर रिस्पॉन्सिबल। क्या होता है, हम में से बहुत सारे लोग वैल्यूअर्स भी होंगे, बहुत सारे लोग फॉरेंसिक ऑडिटर्स भी होंगे। तो इन टर्म्स टू प्रूव आवरसेल्फ, मेनी अ टाइम्स व्हाट हैपेंस, हम लोग लोवेस्ट कोटेशंस मंगाते हैं। वैल्यूएशंस आई हैव सीन, एक टाइम था जब ₹1,00,000 फी होती थी, फिर 50,000 हुआ। अब बैंकर्स आर गेटिंग द वैल्यूएशंस डन फॉर 10,000 रुपीस, 15,000। मतलब बैंकर्स बोलते हैं कि जब 10,000 वाला आदमी कोटेशन दे रहा है तो आप 50,000 वाला क्यों मंगाते हैं। प्रॉब्लम क्या आती है, हम आईपी हम ही लोग वो कोटेशन मंगा के जो सस्ता वाला तो उसको हम फॉरवर्ड करते हैं और सीओसी में रखते हैं। आई ऑलवेज विश होता हूँ, मैं ऑलवेज ट्राई करता हूँ, जब मेरे पास कोटेशन आते हैं तो मैं उनको पहले ही बोलता हूँ आप अच्छा और सही फी भरिएगा, क्योंकि अल्टीमेटली कम फी भरेंगे वो लोग जस्टिफाई नहीं करते, क्वालिटी डिलीवर नहीं करते, क्योंकि उनको टाइम डिवोट करने के लिए नहीं होता। और बाद में एज ए इंसॉल्वेंसी प्रोफेशनल हम लोगों को सफर करना पड़ता है, ना तो वो फॉरेंसिक ऑडिट सही आती है, ना वैल्यूएशन के अंदर एफर्ट्स डाले हुए होते हैं, तो पूरे प्रोसेस के अंदर चैलेंजेस आते हैं। तो कहीं ना कहीं हम लोगों को ये अवेयरनेस एज ए इंसॉल्वेंसी प्रोफेशनल वी नीड टू सी इनटू दिस, एंड हम लोगों को कुछ करना पड़ेगा। बट अदरवाइज बैंकर्स विल ऑलवेज गो मोस्ट ऑफ द केसेस द लोवेस्ट फी क्राइटेरिया ओनली। एक्सेप्शनली लार्ज केस है, बहुत बड़े चैलेंजिंग केसेस है, वहां अलग बात है, बट मेजोरिटी ऑफ द मार्केट जो इंसॉल्वेंसी प्रोफेशनल्स है, 90% ऑफ द प्रोफेशनल्स वुड बी फेसिंग द चैलेंजेस। ओवर टू यू प्रवीण भाई।
Okay, chalo, thanks Vikas bhai for your inputs and practical suggestions. Anybody would like to supplement? Mr. Manoj Agarwal is here.
सर मेरा ये सोचना है कि अगर कुछ गाइडेंस कुछ आईपीए की तरफ से हो सके, जैसे कि सीए इंस्टीट्यूट की तरफ से फीस को लेकर के कोई गाइडेंस है, इफ वी कैन हैव समथिंग लाइक दैट and that may be a guiding factor. Can that be discussed with IPAs and कुछ कर सकते हैं उसमें?
Sir, इस पे कोई guidance कोई निकालेगा नहीं. We IP will have to find out a solution to it, because IBBA is very strict. They will not come out with any paper. IPA will also not like to come out with any paper, and there is no standardized formula for this. Only thing is we IP will have to discuss, debate, and find some level. And the problem is not only the chartered accountant, the lawyers, the company secretary, but we are also having a tough stand by the ex-bankers, because ex-bankers, they have all the responsibilities over and they get a good pension also.
What you are saying is ex-bankers that is increasing. The competition from ex-bankers is increasing actually. That
Yes. Yes, sir. And they work
and
without
they are
almost no
preferred lot.
overhead. They are preferred lot, plus they don't have any overhead, and plus the person who have retired already, they have been they are seniors of the person who is now deciding. Sorry. Any sir, अक्षय जी आपको कुछ कहना है? अक्षय भाई. Okay, should we move? Now, I have seen some IPs have discussed that after fixing the L1 fees, even after in the first COC meeting, they again negotiate these fees. So, एक बार fees fix कर दिए 2 लाख रुपया, फिर first COC they say, bank has also appointed, bank in the very first COC again they say what fees you will be, while changing from IRP to RP. Some of the RPs have gone to the banks and said, sir, ये आपने इतने में दिया है, मैं उसको कम में कर दूंगा, and then the bank start negotiating. Many cases, some IPs have talked to me that this is a problem they are facing. जहाँ फी 2 लाख रुपया फिक्स की थी, which they are now reduced to 180, 170, 150, something like that. So this is also happening. First it was L1, again it has brought down from L1 20% cut, 15% cut. Something sort of this sort of things are going on. How far it is true or how far others have faced, I don't know.
प्रवीण भाई,
Yes sir.
प्रवीण भाई, एक नया प्रॉब्लम जो मैंने फेस किया 2 असाइनमेंट में हो गया IRP
सर ये
में।
प्रॉब्लम पे डिस्कस करना, अदर प्रॉब्लम फिर अपन
नहीं, मैं इसी प्रॉब्लम बोला हूँ। पहले असाइनमेंट में मेरा फीस IRP 1 लाख रुपीस था। नाउ जैसे हमारा शुरू हुआ, फाइनेंस क्रेडिटर वाज देयर ओनली, सो ही स्टार्टेड टू आर्ग्यू कि भाई इतना पैसा तो हमारा बैंक नहीं दे सकता, यू हैव टू रिड्यूस इट। लास्टली उन्होंने एक सजेशन दिया, व्हाट यू डू सर, यू कीप, कंपनी में कुछ है नहीं, यू कीप इट 1,50,000 रुपीज इंस्टेड ऑफ 1 लाख। पर अगर पैसा आएगा तो हम लोग पे करेंगे, अगर आप पैसा रिकवरी करोगे, नहीं तो 50,000 रख लो, हम लोग फिक्स दे देते हैं। नाउ व्हाट टू डू इन दिस टाइप ऑफ केस? अनदर केस तो ही डायरेक्टली वांटेड कि डायरेक्टली 50% पे आ जाओ, नहीं तो वी आर गिविंग केस टू समवन एल्स। तो ये प्रॉब्लम तो
महेश
कब
भाई,
शुरू होगी?
महेश भाई, इसमें सिंपल, मेरा अभी हम लोग का एक मैटर एडमिट हुआ है।
हाँ
उसमें DHFL इज फाइनेंशियल क्रेडिटर, बोलता है 50,000 में 6 महीने का काम। मैं बोला 1 महीने का भी काम नहीं करूंगा 50,000 में, मेरे को मेरा जो फीस है 2.5 लाख रुपया मैं लूंगा। इफ यू वांट टू गिव गिव, तो बोलता है नहीं, देन वी विल चेंज। आई सेड गो अहेड फॉर चेंज, टिल द टाइम न्यू RP is coming, till that time my fees remains the same and I will collect from you. So they have written a mail stating that we will not pay you this money. I said, you are not supposed to tell me that you will not pay. I am filing a application at NCLT for a direction from NCLT on these lines. When NCLT is telling me in this appointment that the 2 lakhs towards expenses to be given by the OC for first month, where the financial creditor is not having. Now, this all things we will have to deal one-on-one, because here the matter on the fees when we discuss, no, I think what needs to be understood by us is that everyone who is ready to afford, there are some IPs, as I said, who are ready to do it free. There are some कि एक्सपीरियंस लेना है तो मैं कोई भी प्राइस में लेने को तैयार हूँ सर। वो एक एक दो दो केस में निकलते जाएंगे। आज 3,700 IPs है सर, एक्टिव कितने हैं उसमें से? आज भी 600 ही एक्टिव है, और 350 ही ऐसे आईपी है जिसके पास 2 से ज्यादा काम है। 600 में भी आधे 300 के पास करीबन एक ही ट्रांजेक्शन कर रहा है। सो लेट्स नॉट सी दिस इन द मैनर, बिकॉज क्या है, ये सब लोग, एवरीवन हु इज एंटरिंग इनटू दिस फील्ड बाय क्लियरिंग एग्जाम इज जस्ट टेस्टिंग द वाटर्स. After 1 or 2 cases, I have seen so many chartered accountants, practicing chartered accountants who leaped into it in the initial days. Now they are out. They don't want to practice this. 1 or 2 cases they had handled. Now they don't want only. They are not filing only. The reason is that after going through the 2 cases, they feel that their practice is the better mode of working. This is a full-time work. So initially, whosoever enters, there may be a price cut. There may be things. I have always put my strong foot forward, stating that this is what I want. If COC is not interested, I am ready to walk out. Who is ready to take at what cost depends on each person's capability to work. The novice who enters initially take it at a low cost, then they cry and then they leave the profession only. So it's basically demand and supply again say. At the most, what we should all try to do is we should try to come out with some minimum standards that on fees that one has to work on. But what can be the minimum standard? How to fix that thing? If someone can work or some metrics can be worked out, probably, then we can try to reach to all the IPs that this is a standard matrix that one has to follow. And if we start doing this, then probably it becomes easy. IPA or IBBI getting a support on the fee structure may not be possible, because statutorily they are bound by this demand and supply rule, and they will not interfere on the fee part.
Yes, sir. IBBI and IPA will not interact. Only the
So it
RP,
can be an
RP
association
who are
IP.
our association or our study group, which we need to discuss and decide and understand the banker's mentality, plus what precaution we should take. That is the only purpose of arranging this meeting.
Right. So IPs associations which are there there are many associations over a period that has come up. We should try to consolidate, because what is happening is every 2 months there is some leader coming up with a new association. But instead of that, if there is a consolidation amongst the association with respect to this fee, let the all association work on their own model. They may have their own vision to achieve, but at least on the one common objective, all they come together, and all out of 3,700 IPs, if at least 2,500 IPs are a part of these associations, and then the representation takes place, or not only representation, I mean, if we come together and take a pledge, then it automatically moves in this direction. But it's a difficult call, because none of the association as on date is able to command maximum number of members. all are having membership of 50 to 500 members at a place. So you will not find an association, a single association with more than that number. Everyone is trying, but none have been, to my knowledge, has a member more than 500 or 600 in their association. IP members as their association members.
Correct. Sir Udayraj, sir, any additional point on this? Sir, anybody to say, or we move to the next question?
Praveen, I move to the next question.
Sir, we also see that if appointed by the operational gator or the financial gator, which is not supported by the bank, the normally first month fee, the financial gators are not ratifying it, and this will
Right.
become a major challenge. They don't continue the IRP, sorry, and they even don't ratify the fees which has been agreed upon by the operational gator or other than the bank financial gator. So this is also another challenge which is being faced as on date. Initially, at least the banks were approving it, but now of late the state were rejected without looking at who is the IRP is, or who it is, or why it has been appointed, or even the IRP appointed by NBFC is also not accepted to the bank. Not accepted plus fees is also not accepted, and they don't ratify. So what the group leaders have to say on this? Are you facing the same type of problems, or
Yeah, Praveen,
how
but
it
I
is?
think this is the issue from inception, and it is the law is framed in such manner that you cannot help it, because IRP to RP, the change that they have suggested, and that change requires a voting. The financial
हेलो
uh,
आ रहे तो आ जाओ, मेरे सेकंड मीटिंग में अगर आपको जमे तो आ जाओ, मेरे को थोड़ा क्या बैंक का अकाउंट खोल दिया
in his kitty
कभी
and he
सेकंड
votes
मीटिंग में
against the
7 बजे तक वोट
IRP,
हो जाओगे
you cannot, and OC as far as not ratified, there's become OC.
कौन
Yes. Uday, you have anything or anyone
नहीं,
else?
वो नहीं, अतुल नहीं है, रेखा नहीं है, और जितना नहीं है. चलो हेलो
Uday, anything? Devang Bhai, you are there. Anything, Devang Bhai, on this?
Snehal bhai, with your kind permission, Rajan Agarwal here.
Yes.
Snehal bhai, with your kind permission,
Yes, Rajan Bhai.
giving us permission.
Yes, Rajan Bhai. Yes, Rajan Bhai, say.
Good evening to everybody. So I have been hearing the discussion. My humble submission to all of you in this is this, that see, this is a hazard of the profession which we will have to live with. As you mentioned that new and new IPs will start keep on coming, and they will keep on quoting very low for getting experience. So that is something which we will have to face. उसका कुछ नहीं कर सकते आप. In the course of time मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि people will realize that this दो चार लोग अटकेंगे या खुद मार खाएंगे तो धीरे धीरे word spread होगा कि this is very serious business and you cannot quote like this. So that will make a difference over a period of time. Apart from that, I believe over a period of time, this work will be handled by only those people who have good amount of infrastructure, and at that point of time, they will get the fees that they want. I think in due course of time ये होना चाहिए. मैं सिर्फ ये कहना चाहता हूँ कि we should refrain from asking the IPA or any other statutory body, say like IBBI, to give some standard on fees, right? Because if they give any standard on fees, then वो lower side पे ही होगा, और अगर ऐसा कुछ standard in print आ गया from any authority, then I am very sure those who are doing good work will not be able to get more. So I don't think it is going to help you that some standard of fees is laid down by some IPA or IBBI. And in case it is, even if it is to bargain and offer you low, right? So it is not going to help you, but on the upper side, it will be an impediment for you. So we should refrain from doing that. And in due course of time, ये जो जितने भी लोग कम भाव में ले रहे हैं assignments, I believe in due course of time ये सब settle होगा. This is an evolving law. 2 years, 3 years, 4, 5 years is a too small a period. I believe it will take little bit more time to settle down. Over to convener.
Yeah. Devang bhai, you
Hello.
want to say something? Yes.
According to what Rajan bhai says, in all professions, this is there. Some people work at pennies and some work at gold standards. So this is a
Right.
part of all professions and one has to live with it.
Hello.
Nayak
Snehal.
sir. Yes.
Hello, Snehal.
Yes.
Hello, Snehal. Can you just? I'm sorry, but your voice got break up at my end. You know, when you were describing the problem between the fee ratification of IRP and RP, can you just briefly repeat that? I'm sorry to ask. You know, that just this question before the Rajan Bhai's observation. You know, regarding that. There's the bank's resistance of you know, ratifying the fees. That point where you are making.
Amit ji, the banks are normally the financial creditor in his has to ratify the fees of the RP. If it is ratified, it forms a part of CRP cost. If it is not ratified, it doesn't form a part of the CRP cost. Okay. So in the first month, when the OC is appointing, if the fees is not ratified, it is the cost to the OC. You have to recover your fees from the OC. Now,
Correct.
when you are appointed as from NC and by NCLT, and if OC is not ready to pay, you have no other recourse but to go to NCLT and just seek a
Again.
direction from them, whereby
Okay.
the is directed to make the payment of your fees.
Okay.
But
So it
this is
becomes
a part and parcel of your profession. I think now we will have to take that accordingly. Yes.
correct. Okay. Hi. I got. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Right.
Snehal bhai, should we move to next question?
Yes, sir. I am open for it.
So many times it is seen that after the admission order, the company directors move to the NCLAT, and then the NCLAT grant a stay of 6 to 8 weeks for the formation of COC. Now the COC is not formed, IRP continues. The applicant says, I will pay only first month fee. What happened to the second month fee? Who will pay? What cost to be incurred? What services to be rendered? All these are very big question mark. Now the corporator also stops giving any information, what not to do and what to do. My experience is that IRP continues his roles full-fledged, but without information, his hands are tied up. Tomorrow, after 1 month, who will pay his fees if the case is settled? If case is not settled, okay, one can go to NCLT, ratify. Whatever you said is all okay. But if the case goes on for 2 months, then what happens in the initial stage? And subsequently also when it is stayed, what happens to the remuneration? Then the bank also resistant to pay remuneration, and these are all combined question. Third is the exclusion period remuneration. Like in COVID period, some I have got 1 year exclusion, some have got 6 months exclusion. So during the exclusion period, whether the remuneration continues, the responsibility continues. These are all the questions which are referred by in the various what you can say calls which we get from the various IRPs, RPs, and we face this type of.
Praveen bhai,
Yes, sir.
Praveen bhai, on this fee aspect, let's go one by one. Exclusion, we discuss it separately. We discuss the first part because that is very critical. What you say that there is a IRP who is appointed. There is a stay that has come in the process. During the stay, IRP is asked to continue but not to form COC. first month OC is to pay, then who will pay for the balance period? So here, this is very critical question, unanswered at level. But whatever is the law says that when there cannot be a break in the activity of RP and IRP, there is a continuous process that works. So the same rationale applies here, that the fee will also be constant. First 30 days is clearly mentioned OC's cost if it is not ratified. Thereafter, it is a COC's cost. So any fees that comes, that is for that period, that comes after 30 days, has to be borne by the COC. Whether it is a stay, whether the CRP is on or not. Now the question comes that there is a settlement happening in that period. So in that case, the settlement can only happen when the RP is giving his consent to it. Settlement cannot happen without the RP consent. There is a bank guarantee, either the person has to give to the extent of the CRP cost till that date if he is withdrawing, even not under 12A, but under regulation, if he is withdrawing before the COC is formed, then also he has to follow that due process of CRP cost being paid in full till that date. So in that CRP cost, when you are giving your consent for withdrawal as a RP and you are giving if that payment is not made, you should not give that consent. In various we have done more than around 8 to 9 cases where we have done the withdrawal. In 2 cases, it was withdrawal before COC. In other cases, after, it was under 12A. In all the cases, we made it a point that the matter of withdrawal will not be heard without us. And in that case, we have made it a point that unless the payment in full is made or a bank guarantee for the full amount of CRP cost is given to us, we will not be in favor of withdrawal. And the bench has accepted this, the prayer, and has always been supported on it. If you don't ask, they don't pay. But if you ask and you are adamant, they have no option because the law is very clear on this point, in my view. Anyone has any contrary experience or views, I keep this to discussion for on that, open for all. Then we take up the exclusion part.
So Udayraj ji, if you have any supplement or anybody, sir.
So typically, settlements do happen, and that settlement would happen between the applicant and the CD. So when an IRP talks about settlement happening and he not knowing, I get little surprised, because it is the applicant who appointed you, and if something is happening behind your back, you really are not in control of the situation. So it all starts from your appointment and you giving consent. There is always a likelihood of settlement, and settlement should be welcomed because the account continues to operate and remain productive. So if there is anything about settlement happening, we as an IRP should promote that and allow that application pass through you. Section 12A covers, regulation 30A covers even this situation where even before COC is formed, you do settlement. So we suggest that it has to be done through us. You submit 12A to us, we will make the application on your behalf. And we do that, in which bankers typically will not give you any guarantee. They will give you a letter or undertaking, which NCLTs have accepted many a times. So you can do that, and that fee will come out. Fee is to be paid up to the date of acceptance of that application, or I would say up to the date of order of withdrawal, and that is what the law is. So we have to be very critical about updating the CRP cost on day-to-day basis and allowing it to be presented before the bench that this is the cost as on the date of hearing, and see to it that the same cost is included in the order also, so that it becomes easy for you to recover that kind of money. Another issue that we have seen people facing is operational creditors or financial creditors not paying the IRP cost at all for days, months, and they try to negotiate things, and we have seen that after negotiation they reduce the fees and the company goes into liquidation and even the negotiated fee is not paid. So be careful about this. These are our market tactics. You have to be careful about what you are agreeing to, what you are not agreeing to, and accordingly proceed on this particular point. Withdrawals, settlements is the order of the day, and even financial institutions and bankers have started using Section 7 applications as a recovery tool, and we have to live with that. There is no option. Only in complicated cases where there is a bar on 29A, no possibility of recovery, then such matters are getting admitted into insolvency. Or where there are promoters who are fighting it within themselves, then maybe the case gets prolonged a little bit. But if it is net worth positive case, typically the promoters would come up and settle the matter somehow. So these are my observations on withdrawal of cases. Recovery of fee, yes, we have to be very strict about it. We have to be open about it. As a professional, as a CA or a CMA or as a company secretary, we are not used to demand our fees. But in this case, you have to demand your fees. Otherwise, your fee will not come to you. As Snehal has rightly said, if you don't ask, you will not get the fee. Ask for the fee, demand your fee, and you will get it.
Sir, one more question. The most time the settlement is not through 12A. It is before the COC formation, the settlement or withdrawal is at the NCLAT level, not at the NCLT level. And NCLAT level, they say for fees you go to NCLT level. So after the withdrawal is done, when we'll have to knock the doors of NCLT. So that is the issues which
Sir,
members
but
are
during
facing.
NCLT hearing, nothing stops you from representing yourself in that case so that your view is also incorporated there. What happens typically is IRPs completely ignore what is going at NCLAT. But that is not right. In couple of our matters, the matter went up to Supreme Court and there was stay on the process for some time and all that. But when you are there, bench is comfortable in asking questions to you as to what is the process, what has happened, claims received, not received, COC likely to be formed, not likely to be formed. All those issues can be interacted with, and you can record that you are working during this period, and that really helps you in recording your fees and doing your duty also.
Right, to add to it, in our case, we had even filed a caveat where we thought that there is a happening of some settlement without our knowledge. If the OC and the promoters are in touch, and at the other end they are non-cooperating, we had filed a caveat at both the places, at NCLT and NCLAT, both, that in case these people are going ahead with the settlement, the matter be heard with us only. So in one of the matter at NCLT, when they tried to approach for settlement without the consent of the RP, and we had filed the caveat, we were called for, and then we were asked, so we told that they are making mockery of this law, because the one side, the promoter, the OC has filed this matter for resolution, and other side, the promoter is not cooperating by giving us assistance or any documents and trying to settle in the name of settlement. They are just buying out the time, and this application has been made to you without the knowledge of us that we are settling, we want to withdraw. So we say that we have already worked on the transaction, and we have no objection in your lordship being withdrawing the matter, provided our fees till date is paid. And the matter was settled and the fees was also paid. So they actually were asked that you first freeze with them. So they say they even objected that, sir, he is asking extraordinary fees. I say, sir, my fees is what I had asked on the day one. Today also I'm asking the same fees. There is no variance, and it is in the mail that you can check it out. So I cannot change my things. So documentation comes to play when all this type of matter comes. So when you have a good documentation and you are strong on your fee footing, it may be some discussion. The bench may bench have actually started interfering, which they should not do. But they say, "यार देख लो थोड़ा कम कर दो और खत्म करो इसको." But in my view, that is they go beyond the power. But if you still stick to your fees, they have no option but to say that you settle with him. Then only you will be able to give the withdrawal order. So it is up to you how you present yourself to NCLT, NCLAT, and how strong is your legal team. Let's all understand this insolvency, what we are practicing today, was always a forte of the lawyers. In past, the laws which were there on insolvency were the laws which were actually practiced by the lawyers. So today also they command a special space. The work that we are being asked to do, and we have taken the foray over them, but still, I believe the legal, without legal proper guidance and legal team, when we work, these are the issues that we face, because if we don't have that proper representation in the NCLT, we are bound to face all these challenges.
Can I speak, Snehal bhai?
Yes, Mahesh bhai, always welcome.
So actually, what has happened in my case, I got my fees because in the INCLAD, what they have told to me that what are you do? You tell us first. So instead of because the CD wanted that it should be transferred to the NCLT, but INCLAD told no. You first pay to him his fees, then the matter should be settled. So in the last month, I got
Yes.
my entire fees, and that was for the month 18 months, more than 18 months, because my case was in Supreme Court, then it came to INCLAD, and it went on like that. So for the 18-month fees, I got it in last month.
सर पार्टी कभी दे रहे हो?
पार्टी ले लो सर, पार्टी
RRC, sir,
18 month
RRC में आ रहे हैं।
RRC में आ रहे हैं ना सर?
हाँ, RRC में आ रहे हैं सर।
हाँ सर,
बस
तो पार्टी वहीं
तो
पे
पार्टी
मिलेगी।
की तैयारी सर।
हाँ, पक्का सर। तो सर मेरे को मिली फीस, 18 महीने की फीस मिली सर, एक साथ में।
नहीं
और
सर,
मैंने बोला
मांगोगे तो सब मिलता है। मैं तो हर बार झगड़ा करके लिया है।
और सर इसमें
मैंने
एक
तो
चीज और,
COC से झगड़ा भी किया है, NCLT से भी झगड़ा किया है, बट झगड़ा मतलब प्यार से करना है। यू हैव टू फाइट इट आउट ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ लॉ.
और
I have
इसमें एक
even
चीज,
in the COC, I have even claimed that I am a MSME and delay in payment will have called for interest. They have not paid me the principal, my fees, but I have even billed them down the interest. I have been sending them bills that you have to pay with interest as per MSME. 45 days are over, not payment. Now it invites interest payment from you. अपने को इतना पेनल्टी
To add
लगाते
to
तो हम
this,
भी मांग ही सकते हैं,
Snehal,
मानने में कोई नुकसान नहीं है सर.
yes,
Yes.
Snehal, to add to this is again another thing, is everybody should register themselves as a service provider under MSME Udyam and mention that in your bills. I do that
Invoices.
regularly, and as Snehal has said, asking interest for that becomes easy. We have not done that by billing it actually, but that remains a tool with you, which you can certainly invoke.
सर माय एक्सपीरियंस इज, मैंने ये करने से बिल जैसे इनवॉइस डाला और इंटरेस्ट का मेरा प्रिंसिपल आ गया, इंटरेस्ट अभी भी पेंडिंग है. दे आर सेइंग कि ये नहीं होगा, बट आई सेड दैट बिल इश्यू करने तक मैंने टाइम दिया था तुमको, क्योंकि आई हैड मेल्ड देम ट्वाइस that I will charge you interest. So after 60th day, actually, I had sent them the invoice on that lines. So it is pending, but I have been able to recover my actually fees what was due because of this thing. So we RPs, when we are able to recover and resolve others' matter, we should be capable of resolving our matter at our end by taking legal assistance.
सर एक चीज और मेरे को बोलना है यहाँ पर सर, somebody, some liquidator has appointed me, and that liquidator is IP, and he objected for my fees. Is it justified, sir?
Sorry.
What has happened that some liquidator
I am not able to hear you clearly.
I am telling that somebody from our this institution has appointed me as the IRP of that CD, because he was acting as the liquidator of that company. Fees was never decided, sir. And when I have given my bill, the liquidator has objected for my fees. Then bench told that the liquidator has nothing to worry about the fees. The fees is to be decided by the IRP and to the corporate debtor. But is it justified to object our people like that, sir?
I normally, first time I have heard this over paternity, I always follow a practice at my end that if I am replacing any IRP, before I take over, I see to it that the COC pays the IRP fees, what has been there. If there is dispute in the fees, I try to call the IRP in my first COC meeting, get it settled. Instead of passing the buck who has done what and what has not been done by the previous person, we have to work as a professional that whatever now there is a change from that, whatever is pending, I have to complete it. Whether he has been paid more or less, if we start pointing fingers at each other and do mudslinging on each other, I think then this profession will be in a very bad state.
Well,
So
that's why
practically, if someone is doing it, is he
Yeah.
should avoid doing this.
Yes, sir. In my case, that person has done this, sir.
होते हैं सर, सब जगह पे थोड़े बहुत मिलेंगे कैरेक्टर सर. मेरे को भी इन आवर केसेस आल्सो वी हैव फाउंड वेरियस पीपल. मैं तो इतना लेक्चर लेता हूँ, क्लोजली कनेक्टेड रहता हूँ काफी आईपीएस के साथ. वो भी अपने से ही ज्ञान लेते हैं और अपने सामने अपने अगेंस्ट में यूज करते हैं. ऐसे भी होता है सर. Nothing to worry. Everything we move with the flow and we do our work as per the code. On the fee aspect, we need to be very thorough. So get the mandate signed, get the engagement letter signed, get the COC ratified. Not ratifying, file the application for non-cooperation. Yes. Can we discuss on the exclusion part? Because exclusion वाला जो है ना, उसमें तो एक अलग ही problem है. The banks
Yes,
are
sir.
saying कि this period exclusion तुम ले रहे हो तो उसमें तुम्हारे हम fees क्यों दे? Union Bank specifically, I had a very huge fight with them on this point. They are saying कि pandemic में आपने काम क्या किया है? I had to tell them मैं काम तो ऐसे भी कुछ नहीं करता हूँ, मैं तो ऐसे ही सोते रहता हूँ. मेरे को जैसे ये रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी दी है ना, उसका फीस है ये. काम करने का फीस नहीं है. काम करने के तो I have been told to keep people and they will do. So they will not pay, and you have to put your strong foot that if you don't pay, we will have to move the NCLT for the fee structure. They cannot reduce your fees. It is not that in pandemic you are not doing work. Your responsibility is full. It is not half. If anything happens at site at the client's place, who is going to be responsible? You. In one of our case, during the first lockdown, there was a fire type of situation. We were sitting in Mumbai, in Karnataka, it was the unit. We had handled that situation. Now, if the COC comes and say, boss, तुमने काम क्या किया, मतलब, how can they say that? You have to be very clear. We actually have accepted that. चलो 50% दे दो. Why 50%? Responsibility किसी का 50% हुआ है क्या? लेकिन हम लोग ही छोड़ देते हैं सर. तो अपने पे ही आता है वो एक्सक्लूजन वाला चीज. तो एक्सक्लूजन में फी मैं तो पूरा ले रहा हूँ और ले भी रहा हूँ आगे, और जो नहीं दे रहा है उसके अगेंस्ट में केस फाइल कर रहा हूँ. मैंने तो घर में ही लॉयर बिठा के रखा है, काम करते रहने का लॉयर का. उसका काम ही है एप्लीकेशन फाइल करते रहने का. क्योंकि अपन अपना फीस के लिए सब जगह पे कॉम्प्रोमाइज करेंगे तो हाउ विल बी सर्वाइव.
फीस मिली है सर, एक्सक्लूजन की मेरे को भी मिली है सर, बिकॉज आई गॉट इट फ्रॉम HDFC बैंक. आई हैड गॉट एन असाइनमेंट दैट हैज बीन कंप्लीटेड एंड दे हैव गिवन मी एक्सक्लूजन पीरियड फीस सर.
राइट
सर अभी तो पार्टी पक्की और आइसक्रीम के साथ.
यस यस सर.
चलो वी मूव टू द नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन क्योंकि टाइम शॉर्ट है अभी 10. Now we have only 20 minutes left.
Exclusion, I would just add couple of things.
Yes sir, yes sir. Sorry.
Unfortunately, or whatever situation, I have couple of cases and my colleagues have, which have run more than 700 days. By exclusion, extension, group insolvency, NCLT's passing order that run everything together, everything that you can imagine under or you cannot imagine under the law. And of course, CRP cost in such cases goes up. So COCs do have apprehensions about it. And we have to explain it to them as to this is a cost which is mandatory. And if you want to remove A, B is going to charge you the fees. So it's not about not being able to pay fee to A. If you don't want to pay A, B will come and B will charge the fees. So it doesn't really matter. Of course, cost goes up. And the cost goes up because of delays, litigations, COVID, everything is accepted, and that is that everybody has accepted. So the value of the asset may go down in this period. So everybody has to accept that. Another thing is in your mandate, please try to amend your mandate by saying that same fees will be continue to apply in case of extension, exclusion, whatever it is, in a most subtle way, so that you can go back to that particular mandate and say that this was agreed in advance, not in a very express way, but in a subtle way. You can do that in your quotation or agreement that you do it itself. Then I forgot, somebody was talking about being appointed as an IRP with no fee agreed. So don't do that, because in inspection that is conducted by IBBI, they do ask all these things, whether you sent in quotation, which was accepted and all that. And these are considered to be important documents. So situation where you don't have a mandate or even an email in place. Email is also fine as a mandate, no issues. But there has to be something which is in place. Documentation, appointments have to be by way of exchange of communication only, and that also has to happen in due time, not sometime after accepting form 2. So don't just give form 2 without a documented fee that is agreed with you. Thank you.
Sir, anything else?
Yes. No, move to the next question, sir.
So many times we come across where the COC says now that our resolution plan is submitted, so you reduce the fee after the plan is submitted till the approval of the plan. It nearly takes 3 to 4 months or sometimes longer time also. So here also they say that now the work is over and you have to just continue. Sometimes we have said no, that we had considered that time and we have charged a lower fee and this has been averaged out now. Or sometimes we say no, that this in our mandate as suggested, or in the COC approval itself, we say till demitting of our office, this will be continued. But in spite of all said and done, COCs have started negotiating the fees once the resolution plan is accepted and on the verge of submission, because thereafter also it takes 3 to 4 months time. So to add that, sometimes the post submission of resolution plan there is lot of litigation. One of the case we are having where there is litigation for almost 1.5 years. After approval of the plan, bank says now we want to not to approve the plan. The applicant says now you have approved, you can't change it. So this type of litigation goes on, and the fees which was budgeted was say at least 6 budgeted, say quotations are submitted, and while budgeting we budget for next 6 months. But if it goes beyond 6 months to 1 year, then again the bank, while paying also, there is number of issues. You had budgeted for 6 months, now you are charging for 1 year. But all this litigation goes on, we have to attend to NCLT, we have to keep reporting, we have to keep managing the funds, all the responsibility continues. But now again the question of fees are being raised. So what is the Snehal Bhai and Uday sir's views on this? Plus any other members have anything to add to it, we can have it.
Sir, it's a purely commercial call to how
Yes,
much
sir.
to charge after the plan is approved, because your majority work is over. However, you continue to engage into the running of the affairs of the company. If the company is a dead company with the resolution applicant will be reviving the company type situation, then it's a different matter altogether. However, if you are going to look after day-to-day business activities and all that, then you have considerable work. Or if there is a lot of litigation going on, then you have considerable work going on. Additionally, one factor should be remembered that nowadays we are receiving plans which are conditional, that this plan is valid for 6 months, 8 months, 1 year. And they say that if litigation continues, then the plan will not be in place. And then the whole of the CRP cost may not be recovered, company may go into liquidation also. So COC negotiating will continue, no doubt about it. It is for us to negotiate our fees, including this eventuality when we are being appointed as RP itself. Because if that is not discussed at that time, then these questions will come up. Plans are approved, and there are typical COC members who do take up this issue invariably after the plan is approved. कि सर अभी तो काम हो गया ना, अभी तो अच्छा है ना, अभी फिर करा दो ना। मतलब वो मैंडेट लेके आता है, आपके चेहरे से आपको समझ में आता है कि ये तो एक क्वेश्चन पूछने के लिए मीटिंग में आया बस ये आपके लिए। So there are people like that. So we have to be careful in agreeing or not agreeing to it. Another issue is the new circular of 10 assignments which has come up. So you will have to convince COC that unless you are freed from this job, you are not going to be able to apply for new job of a new assignment. So you cannot be deprived of your economic gain or limit your gain just because resolution has passed. Because ये litigation कौन करता है? Many times they are members of the COC only. वही एक दूसरे के अगेंस्ट लिटिगेशन करेंगे और अदर स्टेक होल्डर्स लिटिगेशन करेंगे और आपका फी कम होगा। हाउ इज इट जस्टिफाइड? बट if your contract is very clear about what happens after the plan is approved, then there is no issue. In fact, I will suggest that you yourself make a provision in your billing in a such a way कि 6 महीने का फी आपका होगा, फॉर एग्जांपल हाइपोथेटिकली 3 लाख रुपए, रेजोल्यूशन प्लान अप्रूव हो गया 6 महीने में, एंड देन देयर रिडक्शन ऑफ फी ऑफ 25%। आप खुद ही फी थोड़ा आगे पीछे करके एडजस्ट ही कर लो, तो नोबडी विल आस्क यू क्वेश्चंस। दैट इज हाउ क्लेवर वी हैव टू बी कि 3 लाख की जगह 3.5 लाख रुपए फी अप्रूव करा लो, बाद में जाके 2.75 कर दो 3 महीने के लिए एंड सर्वाइव दैट सिचुएशन। सो दिस ट्रिक्स वी विल हैव टू प्ले नाउ, अदरवाइज देयर विल बी प्रेशर टू after a plan is approved. Yes.
Yes.
Snehal by any. Now
I
you will have
think,
to be quick reply, yeah, because we have hardly 15 minutes now left.
Praveen bhai, in
10 to
this, it's a
15.
commercial question. Next question, I think we should take it.
So same thing apply after submission the liquidation application. COC always say that now the liquidation apply kar diya hai, but we see that lot of litigation going on. Section 66 litigation going on, another avoidance litigation going on, 19(2) liquidation going on. Not only at the NCLT level, even at NCLAT level, there are a lot of litigation going on. So the same stories applies at the after submission of the liquidation application also. This is one more point. Then sometimes there is an abnormal delay, which the Udaybhai said that there is a litigation among the dissenting, assenting financial creditor. Somebody, another resolution applicant who has not been given the chance to bid for it or appear for it or outbid somebody else. They also litigate, or they are now willing to come and say that now we are ready to give X plus this much or something. So that all litigation goes on where RP is invariably made the party. So there also the time goes away. At time we see that NCLT level was not functioning in between COVID period. So resolution plan matter we will not taking up because it usually takes a half an hour to 45 minutes minimum. So if the resolution plan comes up for the hearing, they say okay next date. So all these questions have been there where the matter has got delayed. Now coming to the liquidation, if there are negligible asset, bank always insists that you go as per the table. And if there are large assets, then they say how much fraction you will reduce from the table. Say 50% of table or 40% of the table. So both way they try to hit us. So any say on this?
Praveen bhai, in liquidation, if we like, they have to see their cost. We have to see our cost. If we feel that by taking a hit, we are able to take it. If we feel we don't accept the transaction, when the liquidation is being voted, at that time only this will be discussed. So your consent when it is given, this is already a part. At that time you are aware of it. So if you are not comfortable to take up the assignment at the cost that they are proposing, we give up. What has happened is that we always follow the thing, okay, chalo, ye na, and then we get into the trap. Not only this, in liquidation, there are many grey things because when the asset will be whether the asset will be kept as a liquidation pool or whether they will take out, they don't decide at that time. That they will give within 30 days. So
Yes.
we will never know if all the assets are being taken out of the liquidation pool, how we will be getting the fees even if the liquidation table is given to us. So when in liquidation, if you go, you have to be very clear on the fee perspective that whether you take out or not, my fees will be on this value or this percentage or these things. There are cases where a monthly retainer fees is also paid, which is adjusted against the total as per the table, whatever fees comes. And excess or shortage, if it is excess received, then what to do, whether to give back to COC or if it is short received, then what to do. So this all becomes part of your negotiations, commercial part of the assignment when you negotiate and when you are appointed. If you don't take care at the time of that appointment, then you cannot do anything later on.
Okay,
Yes,
fine.
Uday.
Yeah, I will add a new angle to this altogether. I happened to meet one financial institution last week, and they asked me a question, Udayji, do you know any method in which we can change the liquidator? I said, what happened? They say that the liquidator is not calling meeting of stakeholders committee. Despite we requesting, he is not taking our advice. Our advice, when conveyed to him, he is taking his own decisions, which is not as per our advice and not giving reasons also as to why he is not going by our advice. As you are all aware, stakeholders consultation committee can give an advice to the liquidator, and liquidator may go on his own without following the advice, but he has to record the reason in writing. And this is what is happening out there. It could be anything. It could be valuation. It could be reduction in value of the asset while you are selling the asset or putting it on the auction. So there are many things which go into the background of deciding of the fees. Typically, stakeholders are seasoned bankers most of the times. Then you have others like debenture holders, preference shareholders. Many people could be sitting there with you in the stakeholders consultation committee. So you will have to be very careful about your fee part. You can have individual stakeholders meetings also, which is allowed in the law, and make the minutes available to others if they ask for it. So without an COC existing, working in liquidation is even more critical, according to me, than how it is done otherwise. Reduction of fees, whether you want to go for table fees or how, that is purely a commercial matter again. And there is always a pressure to bring you down even below your RP cost also. And there are people who agree to it also. So typically try to agree to a success fee kind of a situation. Liquidation cost से इतना ज़्यादा recovery हो गया तो इतना, so yeah, whatever you feel is right. So based on facts, the decision can be taken. However, try to do all that discussion and decision right when you are passing your resolutions under regulation 39B, C and D, so that you do it while you are passing the resolution plan or liquidation resolution itself. Don't allow it to be open for discussion after liquidation starts. So that is the only thing which I can suggest from my side. Thank you.
Anybody else want to say anything or add to it, or not the repetition? And one has to be very quick now.
Hello, Uday. Hello.
Yes.
Can we charge for a succession fees as you mentioned? Am I audible?
Yes. Yes, Sandeepji. You are audible, Sandeepji.
Yeah. Can we charge succession fees in liquidation instead of table?
Both. No,
Yes.
even in the resolution also, that point is still open. No? The success fee of point is which has been which was disallowed and
You are looking. Praveen Bhai and Sandeep, are you talking from the CA perspective, whether we, being a CA, can charge fees in
No, no,
liquidation
no,
in a
no.
percentage of success
No,
fee
no,
basis?
no. In liquidation, though there was allowed under the old law also, but here we are
Yes.
talking purely from the IBC perspective, whether the RP can start the success fee at the RP in the resolution stage, which is the in the one of the case of our member only in the real estate
करते हैं
case.
ना सर, सब लोग किया ही है चार्ज, बिग फोर ने क्या किया है, सब सक्सेस फी लिया हुआ है, एक फिक्स
And
फी प्लस सक्सेस फी। तो
Sir,
सक्सेस फी अपने में कहीं भी बात नहीं है। लेट्स नॉट कम आउट विद न्यू आइडियाज फॉर द यूसी मेंबर की सक्सेस फी कर सकते नहीं है लोग के, सक्सेस फी श्योर कर सकते हैं। आपको आपका कैसे परमुटेशन कॉम्बिनेशन बिठाना है, हाउ यू वांट टू चार्ज, इट इज अप टू यू, where it is whether in code or regulation given that you cannot charge your fees on this basis. All bases are allowed.
going further, I was in a seminar conducted by State Bank of India, and head of CAM and head of State Bank's liquidation, and everybody was there. And the new idea was proposed by these people there, that the liquidator can even appoint agents who can market your assets, to whom success fee can be paid. It took little time
Yes.
for me to digest this idea, but that is allowed with appropriate transparency being maintained, and that was a new thing which came up. So you can consider this also, that if you're not able to market the asset well, then market agents can be approached who can do this, register those agents in time appropriately, and get everything that you are doing approved by your consultation committee by their advice. Of course, it's very difficult to get it done from consultation committee, but whatever you are doing, any engineer idea, get stakeholders consultation committee on board.
Uday, we have done this in our case. We have got the approval. So price was fixed by the consultation committee that if a marketing people are appointed to market and sell the assets, and if they are able to bring above this, then this will be the percentage that can be given to them. Below this, they may not be given anything. So targets were given. The marketing person used to get, and in our case, we have got it done. Assured them get it. Our market, the person who did the marketing, the agents who were appointed, they have also got us the price that we were looking, and it was win-win situation for all of us. Yes. Okay. Next question, please, sir.
Sir, I had only a few questions. I thought there will be other questions from the group members. So I had some 8 to 10 questions which I have completed. We have another 10 minutes time. So if members have any other questions or any other points, we can have, or if members have any other suggestions for the new topics which we can take up, the floor is open for another 10 minutes.
Yes.
Any suggestion or anybody of our members would like to lead on any topic is most welcome. So this is a study group, and WRC always insists that the study group meeting should be led by our own members. So anybody would like to take a lead on any topic?
Yes.
We are always, the floor is all, the platform is always available, and we will all, I will at least encourage, other members will also encourage.
I'm sorry, but I am not able to hear you. Your voice was cracking at my end.
See, my thing is now the floor is open for 10 minutes. Whatever questions I had written off to for you just to start the meeting, I have asked them. And now, as our all IPs are there, see, the study group, the basic purpose of the study group by WRC and by the institute is that our members should study and come out for a discussion. However, the intention is that our members should prepare and give a presentation. They should study, and they should also make a representation whenever there are amendments or any matter where our institute representation is required. So I request or I suggest that all members to take deep interest and come out with their subject preparation so that we can arrange the meeting. Each and every time calling outside speaker is not allowed in the study group. So my sincere or humble request that whosoever members would like to take up any subject is most welcome. If they need any assistance, I will see that the other senior member can handle them or guide them or join them. So any practical case study also our study group is ready to take. We had last, I think 2 months back, 2 practical case study about resolution being approved. One was by Jayesh Sangrajka and one was by Mr. Guntu of the road project. So if you have any successful resolution, we can take that also. Or any other questions on these fees, we have 10 minutes time.
मनीष भाई आवाज नहीं आ रही है. मनीष भाई, can you
Manish Bhai has come.
Yeah, hello sir. Good evening all. मैं मनीष सचदेवा हूँ सर. मैंने इसी मंथ से ज्वाइन किया है स्टडी सर्कल. I come from put up
Yeah,
from
Manish.
फरीदाबाद.
You come from?
दिल्ली. फरीदाबाद सर. फरीदाबाद वो दिल्ली के साथ में है थोड़ा सा.
Yes.
एंड बेसिकली ये स्टडी सर्कल में थोड़ा सा बैकग्राउंड अगर अपने बारे में दूं तो हम ज्यादा इनडायरेक्ट टैक्स में काम करते हैं. इनडायरेक्ट टैक्स और फॉरेन ट्रेड में. और रिसेंटली हमने बहुत सारे मतलब आईबीसी से रिलेटेड बहुत सारे असाइनमेंट्स हैंडल किए. सो जिसमें आईबीसी और जीएसटी कस्टम्स वगैरह का बहुत सारा रोल था. तो आई वाज लुकिंग फॉर कि अगर ऐसा कोई एक सेशन स्टडी सर्कल मिले जिसमें हम आईबीसी के बारे में सीख पाए. So on that purpose, I had joined this. In fact, one of our founding members had recommended कि study circle को join करें. So for that, I have joined, and today also I had a nice discussion जो भी चल रहा था. I had listened to it. Probably going forward, I'll be playing some more roles for this prestigious circle. जस्ट इन केस अगर मैं कुछ सजेस्ट कर सकूं, क्योंकि आईबीसी से रिलेटेड बहुत सारे असाइनमेंट्स करे हैं और बहुत सारे रेजोल्यूशन एप्लीकेंट और आरपीस को टैक्स रिलेटेड मैटर्स में बहुत सारी चीजें आती हैं. तो if anybody, if all of us could agree, so I could lead the discussion for next month, जहाँ पे थोड़ा सा हम टैक्स इश्यूज पे डिस्कस कर सकते हैं. जस्ट इन केस we want to have a technical discussion. So very short suggestion.
Okay, sure, you can get in touch with me. My name is Praveen Navandar. You can call me or you can get my number from Snehal Bhai, or you can get in touch with Snehal Bhai also.
Sure, sir. Sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else would like to say anything or suggest anything or any
Praveen
questions
bhai,
on the RRC which we are coming? I request and I say that please don't miss it. It is one of the golden opportunity to interact, and the interaction which we had at the physical study circle is missing. So the to what you can say, recompensate that in a one way or other. Lot of not only the subject but other than the what you can say fellowship and the discussion which we have throughout the day is really very important and it is really helpful. I have myself studied that what after the track discussion is also equally helpful or sometimes more helpful. So I suggest once again, or I request everybody to join. People from far off cities are joining. So people have joined from Coimbatore and Bangalore and Delhi. So we from Bombay and what you can say nearby area should take advantage of this. And all these have been designed by the RPs only. It is not the institutional design. Institute is just carrying on. Okay, so
yes.
Snehal bhai, just tell me. Rati ji, anything? Rati ji, आवाज
Not
नहीं आ रही है.
audible, Rati ji.
राठी जी
राठी जी का क्वेश्चन चैट बॉक्स में डाला हुआ है।
चैट बॉक्स में
तो
सर ने डाला है क्वेश्चन, वो देखना, एक मिनट।
तो पढ़ लो ना, पढ़ लो सर।
Up to what period IRP RP should cease? In case of 12A, change of IP liquidation order, till the
Sir,
order is
why,
uploaded or till the order is received or case is handed over. So you
sir,
should
but
charge
why
the fees till the time
is
you are
that?
involved. Till the
So
time
up
you
to
are
the date of
involved. So if
order.
you are handing it over, process is going to be long till the handover. And that should be a part of your fee structure.
Sir, I
Yes.
don't really agree with this. You can't charge fees as an IRP or RP after the order is pronounced. So I would go one step ahead. After order is pronounced and uploaded, maybe. After that, you lose all your rights and obligations to work as an IRP. If anything is received thereafter, it is completely contractual between a professional and the corporate debtor. But as an IRP or RP, nothing can be charged in that capacity after the order has been uploaded on the website. That is the time that I would typically take. Handover may take some more time. It will be difficult to charge money for that. But if the other party agrees, no issue. You can take that.
No,
But
Uday,
legally,
I differ because only just for the deliberation. Look, if I am devoting my time even after the order is coming for handover, why should I not be paid?
you don't have any locus to charge fees.
Why?
You have lost your office. You are lost also.
Lost your office is
So if
what?
you charge money,
Thereafter, you should not
it's
come and
fine.
tell me
You can't even
about
sign
my
a
office
check.
also. No?
You lose your office
Uday,
on the day of the order.
on the day of the order, I lose my office, I agree, but I don't lose my right for remuneration in that scenario. My right to remuneration is that till I am there in the transaction. If you are availing even a 1 minute service from me, I should charge 1 minute from you.
But
It may
some
not
law
be in
doesn't provide for
the
that.
capacity, may not
may I
be
come in
Doesn't
this, sir?
say. So that is your
Snehal bhai, may
that
I
is
come in for a minute in
you
this?
can wait, that is fine.
Yeah.
However, regulation 38 doesn't provide for that. So if you go by regulations, not a day beyond the date of order. However, if you can charge and other parties paying, nothing about it. I'm not saying don't
I am
charge.
telling,
It
look,
is difficult
we
to
are
show.
talking of a 12A. Uday, we are talking of a
I'm talking
12A.
only. Ready with regulation 30 hai.
So when 12A is being for 12A, what is the CRP cost? If the CRP cost is not paid, 12A will never be accepted by NCLT. So at that time, when the bench is in front of bench, you have to tell that this is my CRP cost and this cost includes the handover cost. Until this time will be the handover thing. So if you have not paid and if you are not able to bargain, it's a different story. But in my
What
view,
I'm
we are
saying.
professionals. We should charge
It's
for it.
completely commercial. If you want to charge, it has to be agreed to. And otherwise, not a day beyond the order date. However, nothing stops you from charging it, but the other party has to agree. Otherwise, you won't be paid.
Manoj bhai, you had something to say on this?
Yeah. I just wanted to add that in case of resolution, normally in the resolution plan itself, they keep a clause that till the time of handover, this person RP will be working as a managing agency or something like that, and that the fees which he was charging during RP period, the same fees will continue. So this clause I have insisted them to add in their plan. So this may also be a sort of.
Right. So yes.
So I think
Any
our
point?
discussion has been benefited to all the RPs. Any further question? We have only 2 minutes now.
Am I audible?
Yes, a little bit louder, sir. We are very low.
Okay.
Come closer.
Now?
Yes. Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Boliye, sir.
So I have a topic. I don't know whether it makes sense or not. See, in some situation, it's a different from fees topic. In some situation, IRP or RP has to incur some unavoidable expenses which COC doesn't pay or CD doesn't have money. just to give a very short example कि आपको दरवाजे पे लॉक लगाना है तो लगाना है, सीडी के पास पैसा नहीं है, सीओसी ने नहीं दिया तो भी आईपी को तो अपना काम करना है. So such expenses are considered interim finance or not? And can we suggest to IBBI give flexibility to IP to incur these marginal expenses on behalf of CD without COC's approval in such emergency cases, subject to certain norms, and such interim funding should be part of such funding should be part of interim funding bearing interest. So can we suggest something like this to IBBI?
Not required, sir. In my view, you can always do what is, you are a RP, you don't require approval to do these expenses which are of necessary. Like in one of our case, we had a deputated security guards. COC is saying बहुत ज्यादा पैसा है हम नहीं देंगे यार security कौन लेगा? We got them to NCLT. We told NCLT that it is their asset which we are actually guarding, and he is not ready to pay that money. He has to pay. If he is not ratifying, he has to ratify. You don't have any other thing. It cannot be an interim finance. Interim finance is well defined. This is not an interim finance at all.
So
this will happen in all the situations, sir. This will happen in case of security, in case of even arranging for the advertisement. Also, in 3 days you have to give the advertisement. It can be in any case. Yeah.
So my question is, my submission is, can we propose to IBBI that these type of things, IPs are free to take these type of decisions subject to certain ceilings, whatever. Can we prepare
रेगुलेटर को दूरी रखो, रेगुलेटर को दूरी रखो. आप करो ना, बिंदास करो, कौन रोकता है आपको? आप करो और फिर एनसीएलटी से ले लो, ऑर्डर आ जाएगा. रेगुलेटर को कई के लिए इसमें डालते हो? रेगुलेटर और 50 चीज डालेगा. ये पेनल्टीज में कैप डाला तो लोअर कैप क्यों डाला? लोअर निकाल देगा, ऊपर ही रखना कैप. नीचे का लोअर फेज लेट इट बी आईपीएस टू डू. वो रेगुलेटर अपना दिमाग लगाता है. लेट्स नॉट गो टू रेगुलेटर ऑन दिस थिंग्स. वी आवरसेल्फ शुड बी केपेबल ऑफ डूइंग इट एंड वी शुड टेक इट. If someone goes head on, we should go to NCLT.
Snehal bhai, then it becomes a case to case. Not all the IPs are equipped, and not all the NCLTs are free to decide on these matters. So that's why I was suggesting that if we have
I strongly recommend no regular interference. I want to have it a free game. For everything regulator saying कि बॉस पानी पीना है, regulator बोलता है तो पीने. यार क्या के लिए regulator पानी पीने के लिए बोलेगा? We should not have anything on regulator. It should be we will run the show. We are the one who is the strongest pillar. So we will run the show on our own. If we are not equipped, we should not take the assignment.
Maybe
we should be clear on this point.
Next time we can, Parveen bhai, next time we can take this topic that in such situation, what should IP do?
Yes, sir. You become the group leader.
अरे नहीं सर, नहीं सर.
अरे ऐसा थोड़ी है, तो कौन लेगा सर?
अरे राठी जी, काफी सालों से हमने आपको सुना नहीं है. पहले आप रेगुलर हमको सुनाते थे, अच्छा अच्छा लेके आते थे केस स्टडी भी. काफी दिनों से हमने सुना नहीं है. इट्स बेटर यू कम बैक. लेट्स हैव दैट डिबेट.
अब तो मैं मॉन्टेसरी में एडमिशन ले रहा हूँ वापस.
अरे नहीं सर, मजा आएगा सर. सर वही बच्चों को हैंडल करना बहुत इजी होता है बड़ों से. तो आप मॉन्टेसरी वाले हो तो ज्यादा अच्छा ही है ना सर.
चलिए सर, थैंक यू सर.
चलो, थैंक यू सर. Should we conclude the meeting with a hearty vote of thanks to both the speakers, both the group leaders? It was a very interacting session and it was very useful for all the members. I request to carry out the vote of thanks with loud applause.
Thank you everybody.
करना पड़ेगा तभी loud applause होगा.
Thank you Uday bhai.
Thank you so much. Bye.
We had an offbeat topic, but I hope everybody enjoyed it. It's really, though offbeat, it really hits our pocket. Sir, we have an interesting topic which is now very much upcoming. That is a personal guarantee insolvency, personal insolvency, and bankruptcy. I have requested Mr. Kumar Saurabh, Advocate Kumar Saurabh, the partner case Khaitan and Company, to take us to the subject. We have seen that a lot of banks have issued the mandate or what they issued expression of interest for the personal insolvency, and it has been started in a big way after this Supreme Court order in the Lalit Jain's case. So it will be some of the orders are already out and some are in pipeline. Lot of proceedings are going on at the NCLT level. There are now enclave order also. So with this thing, we have invited Mr. Kumar Saurabh. I think he has joined. Saurabh sir, you are there?
Hi.
Ashwin, is Saurabh there?
Ashwin
Yes,
sir,
sir.
Saurabh sir.
Saurabh sir is just joining. He's facing some network issues. He's joining in 1 minute.
Okay, no problem.
I'll
So,
request organizer to give access to Ashwin to present his screen.
WRC coordinator. So WRC coordinator, please. One minute. I'll call him and say. हाँ सर स्क्रीन शेयर का राइट दो ना एक अश्विच को हाँ हाँ तो नंबर भेजो आवाज आ रही सारी अभी तो बंद है ना कोई नहीं बंद है क्या
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, sir. You're audible, sir.
Yes, yes. Can we start anything from the organizer's side?
Sir, I'm just waiting for the organizers to give me access to share my screen, sir. As soon as that is done, we can start, sir.
Okay, okay. You have told them?
Yes, sir. I have told them, sir.
Okay, okay.
Ashwij, you have been given the presentation, right? Just check.
Sure, sir. Sir, to access the screen now, I'll have to leave and come back. So I'm just doing that in 1 minute. I'm just logging off and joining with presenters access.
Yes. Sir, we welcome Kumar Saurabh sir to our study group meeting. Just to give you some insight, this is the WRC study group meeting of the RPs, and we regularly have monthly one meeting on the subject where the RPs are interested. This is a knowledge building platform, and this study group is active since last 4 years, right from 2017, and more or less only RPs are there. So these all the meetings are very discussion oriented. It's not a monologue meeting. With these few words, till the Ashwij is given the presentation, right? I will ask Survi madam to briefly introduce the sir, Kumar sir.
Good evening, all. It's my pleasure to introduce Kumar Saurabh sir, partner in banking and finance and restructuring and insolvency from Khaitan and Company. Kumar Saurabh also focuses on insolvency and restructuring practice of the firm and is involved in the CIRP process of some of the largest non-performing accounts in India. The major sectors he involves are cement industry, construction, financial services, hospitality, manufacturing, power, and steel. In his area of expertise, he have advised and represented many clients. I'll just list out few of them. Numital Mittal on the aspects relating to CIRP of SR Steel under IBC code. Vedanta Group as a resolution applicant in the CIRP of Electro Steels Limited. JSW Cements Limited on its resolution plan and bid strategy for Banani Cements Limited. Liberty Group UK on CIRP for ABG Shipyard Limited and Adhunik Group including bid submission and negotiation with the lenders. Edelweiss Asset Reconstruction Company on an interim finance extended to Binani Cements Limited while undergoing CIRP. JSL Limited on the restructuring of rupees 8,000 crores of debt raised from consortium led by SBI. The consortium of lenders led by SBI on the debt restructuring of Jet Airways Limited. He's also provided services in banking and finance industry for various banks, which includes ICICI Bank Limited, Yes Bank Limited, Deutsche Bank Limited, Singapore, HDFC Bank and Bank of Baroda, JP Morgan Europe Limited, KEC International Limited, TBS Bank Limited, Reliance Industries Limited, and Infotel Broadband Services Private Limited. Kumar Saurabh sir have also been identified as a recommended lawyer for the banking and finance by Legal 500. IFLR 1000 ranks Kumar Saurabh as a highly regarded practitioner in the banking and finance practice. Even Chambers and Partners rank Kumar Saurabh as a recognized lawyer in the banking and finance practice. He's also been identified as the Rising Stars for 2018 by Legal Era. He's also been nominated by Economic Times 40 Under 40 Award for the year 2018. He's also been quoted in Economic Times, Hindustan Times, Financial Chronicle, and ILFR. He's also been regularly interviewed by media houses like CNBC, ET Now, and Bloomberg on his expert views regarding insolvency and bankruptcy-related issues. He also contributes regularly to various publications on host of financing and banking issues, including Asian Legal, Business, and Financial Express, etc. So here's a warm welcome to you, sir. Now over to you from WIC Studies.
Thank you very much, and for the detailed introduction. And it is my pleasure to be present here for this session and interact with all the members of the insolvency ecosystem fraternity. Of course, I mean, we are all students of insolvency law, and we are all in the process of learning the subject. And on that note, I would start my presentation. Ashwij, in case if you are able to put it up now, the slides, maybe then I can start.
Sir, I'm still not able to share, sir. If the organizers can once again check if I have.
Yes. I will call once again.
Okay. Ashwij, while you are starting, let me just give a brief background and then we start. But you feel free to start the slides once you are ready. Now, the context in which we are doing the discussion today is really on the liability of personal guarantors, and their accountability pursuant to introduction of IBC. IBC, as you are all aware, was introduced as one of the landmark legislations in the financial sector uh, 5 years back, in an environment where there was a very large section of assets going under stress for various reasons, internal and external, and also impression being created somewhere about India that it is very difficult to do business in India if you are a investor, if you are a financier, and therefore somewhere that whole cloud around the image of the country as a financial market was also taking a hit. Now, in the last 5 years that IBC has been in place from its notification somewhere towards end of 2016, we have seen a very large number of cases going through corporate insolvency resolution process. And most of the businesses, if you see the lending from large banks and financial institutions, have been in corporate sector, uh, and through corporate structures. So it's largely companies in which the financings have been done, and the introduction of insolvency law through notification of provisions regarding corporate insolvency resolution process enabled or gave a tool in the hands of
Ashwin, now you are a presenter. Sorry. Ashwin, you can take and you are a presenter now. You did not log out again. You can just go and present it.
Right. So it was really a situation in last 5 years that where creditors armed with the rights that they have been given under insolvency process to put companies into insolvency and really control the insolvency resolution process, that we have seen a very large number of cases undergo insolvency resolution process. As part of this large number of cases which have gone into insolvency, what we have seen is that there is a outcome which has resulted in quick resolution turnaround of companies which were in stress, in most cases with change of control. In some cases there were situations where no resolution was possible and the companies went into liquidation. But having said that, in both scenarios the outcome of quick resolution has resulted at least in discovery of value of the assets against which lending was done, and which then gave a clarity on how much banks can recover from the defaulting borrowers. Now, basis that overall scheme and the structure that IBC provided through the corporate insolvency resolution process, there has been a fairly large amount of recovery for banks and financial institutions. At the same time, it has not been full recovery. In most cases, there has been a substantial haircut also. Range can vary, but it could be anywhere between 50 to 70-80% also in various cases. Over 50% recovery may have been in lesser number of cases. Now, that opens up a question that if banks and financial institutions have recovered only a portion of their dues through a process which was time bound, which was competitive, which led to maximization of value, but nevertheless did not lead to full recovery, what are the options available for banks to recover the balance dues? And that question is also answered in insolvency law. The insolvency law also gives right to banks, financial institutions to proceed against guarantors and third party obligors, and that was an issue which was in challenge in various proceedings. There were challenges around the fact that can you initiate proceedings against guarantor until there is full recovery, until the resolution process closes, or can you initiate proceedings against a guarantor if there is a compromise with the corporate debtor, the primary borrower, as a result of which if borrower is discharged, how can you go after the guarantor? That is another related question. And these were questions, I think, which kept on say lingering on the overall say larger resolution as far as the banks were concerned, and there were several proceedings which were pending in various courts. And in that backdrop, in 2019 December, we also saw introduction of the personal guarantor insolvency regime through a notification which brought into force the law for personal guarantors. Now, what this law gives right to creditors is that they can initiate proceedings against personal guarantors where they are a guarantee or surety in relation to borrowing taken by a company. And as personal guarantors, they can also be put through a resolution process. Now, courts have now very clearly held that merely because insolvency proceeding is pending against the corporate debtor, or the fact that there has been a resolution which is in the nature of a compromise with the corporate debtor, that would not by itself lead to discharge of liabilities of guarantors. So guarantors as obligors who had entered into contractual arrangements with the banks, financial institutions, to guarantee the liability of the corporate debtor would independently continue to be liable irrespective of the fate of resolution process, so long as it does not lead to full recovery. If it has led to full recovery, then naturally there is no claim. But if it does not lead to full recovery, then there can be claim against personal guarantors, and these claims in personal insolvency process can be independently started. So corporate insolvency resolution is one side of resolution process, but that will not give a honorable exit by itself to the promoter shareholders who have given guarantee. They will also have to face personal insolvency process, and that personal insolvency process will be tried at NCLT if there is a proceeding pending against corporate debtor, and at that stage bank also wants to put personal guarantor into insolvency. However, if for any reason corporate debtor is not in insolvency process and bank wants to initiate the process against the personal guarantor, in that situation you will have option of going to DRT as creditor and initiate the process. It is DRT which has jurisdiction. So in addition to NCLT, in personal insolvency side, the jurisdiction can also lie with DRT, Debt Recovery Tribunal, which is otherwise hearing matters on debt recovery and not resolution under IBC. So that is one point to bear in mind. Now, if there is a situation that you are unable to recover fully, or as a creditor you are looking to initiate proceedings against both, the question is at what stage can you initiate personal insolvency process, who and can file. Now the law is quite clear on that creditors, whether financial creditor, operational creditor, or decree holder on default, or the guarantor himself, he can also initiate proceedings if he determines that he does not have capacity to pay, or lenders can also appoint, nominate a IRP, and IRP can also file. Unlike corporate insolvency, the process can be initiated through the IRP, and once the process is initiated, in that situation there is a requirement of demand. Like in the case of operational creditors, there is a requirement of demand to be made on the personal guarantor, and if the personal guarantor is not able to meet the liability on demand, then an application can be filed, and moment the application is filed, interim moratorium will start from that stage itself. So in that sense, this process will be slightly different than corporate insolvency, and there is interim moratorium from the time that application is filed, and it is possible to withdraw the application also. So on filing of the application, the process effectively gets triggered, where RP has to say make an assessment whether the personal guarantor has means to pay or not, and he is required to give his report to the adjudicating authority, and basis the report submitted to the adjudicating authority by the IRP, the decision to file the application to admit or reject the application for insolvency resolution needs to be decided by adjudicating authority, being NCLT or DRT. Now, the interim moratorium that I was referring to, the interim moratorium kicks in moment the application is filed against the personal guarantor, and that stage it is only a limited moratorium which gets further confirmed once the admission happens. So once the application is filed, there is only stay on initiation of legal proceedings against the guarantor. But once the final say admission order is passed, then from then on there is also restriction which applies on the personal guarantor from disposing of, transferring, alienating any assets. So that restriction comes in on admission. So it's a two-stage moratorium really on the insolvency resolution side. Now, once the moratorium process kicks in and insolvency resolution process starts, then there is requirement to prepare list of creditors. The RP who gets appointed, he has to prepare list of creditors, and in this process, insolvency resolution process, the debtor, the personal guarantor, also gets a chance to prepare a repayment plan. So in a post admission of application scenario, the RP will assess what are the claims against the personal guarantor, and the debtor, the guarantor, has the right to prepare and propose a resolution plan. Now, this is the plan that is given, repayment plan. The guarantor can see what are his liabilities. He is aware of it. He can offer basis his means. What is his repayment plan? How he can discharge the liability. And once the plan is say RP examines the plan and puts it for consideration of creditors, then in that situation the creditors have to take a decision on the repayment plan, whether they accept it or they don't accept it. And in considering the repayment plan, there are various aspects. What all will go into the repayment plan? I mean, along with the repayment plan, statement of affairs of the guarantor needs to be put in. The creditors are also required to be given information. I mean, if the creditors require any further information besides statement of affairs, financial statements, they can ask for further information. They have option to modify, reject, or accept the plan. They can seek modifications also. So it will be a process of negotiation. Once the repayment plan is proposed by the guarantor, debtor, the creditors can consider it, and as part of decision making they can negotiate and finalize. And in this process, secured creditors are required to forfeit security. If they don't forfeit security, then they can be treated as claimant only to the extent of their unsecured claim. If they have any claim which is beyond not covered by security, then for that part of the claim they can remain as a claimant. Otherwise, they will not be part of the creditor pool if they don't choose to forfeit their security. and on the basis of the consideration of the plan, you see that the decision making has to be done. But terms of implementation of the plan, how the debtor proposes to pay, what are the source of funds that he has organized to make payment, what is the terms of discharge of liabilities, if he is asking for any assets to be left behind for him as excluded assets which he can use. Those are all things which will have to be detailed out in repayment plan. You see, the resolution plans that we have seen, resolution plans lay out what are the various claims and how the manner of discharge of that those claims are prescribed. And additionally, in corporate plans, you have change of control as an integral part of the resolution plan and extinguishment of all contingent liabilities. So here, basically, the change of control element is definitely not there because it is a individual's plan. But otherwise, if you see, all other elements more or less would be there in the repayment plan of the individual, and he can propose that I am looking to sell my assets and I have the following assets. Against sale of these assets, I will raise money and I will make payment. That could be his plan, and the creditors can assess that if the assets, whatever is the value of assets against which the offer is being given, if it's a fair value, they can consider. Otherwise, it's a pure commercial decision. But there are certain restrictions which the law prescribes, because individually, ultimately, the plan would be a plan of asset monetization. Largely, that could be the kind of plan, and there are some restrictions on who can't buy without permission from adjudicating authority. RP or any partner of the IP entity of which RP is a partner director cannot buy. RP himself cannot buy. Creditor also cannot buy the assets without the consent of adjudicating authority. Any associate, so if there is an associate who is a relative of the partner, a personal guarantor who comes forward to say that I will buy the assets cannot go to such people without consent of the adjudicating authority. So there are checks and balances that people who may collude to buy at a low value, they are required to take permission of adjudicating authority, and only in that situation the repayment plan will get approved, and on that basis there can be say implementation of the resolution plan, repayment plan, and basis the implementation of repayment plan, the court will pass a discharge order discharging the personal guarantor from his liabilities towards creditors. So you see, like corporate insolvency process, in the personal insolvency process also, there is a process of compromise in the process itself, that the guarantor can come forward and compromise and offer a payment plan subject to some checks and balances. If he gives a plan and the plan is accepted, then the process can close much faster, and the court can give discharge order, and on that basis of discharge order linked to implementation of the payment plan, the guarantor is then discharged of his liabilities, because ultimately he has to also continue. So the law gives him opportunity to offer payment. On that basis, if creditors accept, he can make payment and then get discharge order, and then thereafter continue with his life business, and that's something that law gives a room through a repayment plan. Now, there could be the other scenario, which is that the plan offered by the personal guarantor is something which is not acceptable to the creditors. So creditors feel that no, the assets are not accurately disclosed. There has been transactions through which assets have been, say, transferred, and now basis the suppressed value of assets, repayment plan is being offered, and we don't accept that. In that situation, if they reject the plan, in that situation there could be bankruptcy proceeding. So if the repayment plan is not approved, or insolvency application itself, even at an earlier stage when the initial insolvency application was filed by the creditor or the guarantor, if the court does not approve it, or RP doesn't approve, RP doesn't think that there is any possible repayment plan in this scenario, and the application is rejected, in those scenarios there could be a bankruptcy situation. Now in a bankruptcy situation, bankruptcy as I see could be compared to some of the liquidation process. So it is a bit similar to liquidation process, where like the pre-liquidation process, which is insolvency resolution in a corporate setup, you are not able to find a solution, then the company is put into liquidation and assets can be sold to realize the dues. Similarly, here in bankruptcy, an insolvency professional gets appointed as bankruptcy trustee, and assets of the personal guarantor would vest in the bankruptcy trustee as part of the the bankruptcy process and upon his appointment by the adjudicating authority. And his key responsibility as a bankruptcy trustee is really to take control of the assets, sell the assets, distribute it amongst the creditors, and another important aspect is investigate the affairs of the bankrupt. So investigating the affairs of the bankrupt, what has been his conduct before reaching the stage of bankruptcy. Has he say alienated assets? Has he done extortionate credit transactions? Has he done preferential transactions? Those are also important responsibilities of bankruptcy trustee to examine and deal with as part of the bankruptcy of an individual. Now if we move on, say in a nutshell, if you see what is the waterfall in a bankruptcy situation, because you are looking at a situation where repayment plan has not been accepted by creditors, the guarantor is put to bankruptcy. In bankruptcy, the trustee is vested with all his assets, and he will monetize the assets, and this is the asset monetization, he will distribute it amongst the claimants, creditors. In that, like corporate insolvency, there is a waterfall. That waterfall again is aligned to how corporate insolvency process works. So at the very top you have the costs associated with running the affairs of the bankruptcy trustee during the bankruptcy process. Then comes secured creditors, who are right at the top, at par with workmen who have claimed for last 24-month dues. And then comes wages and dues of employees. So if the guarantor has people working for him in the category of workmen or employees, they will be at par with secured creditors or just below secured creditor depending on their status. And next is the dues of government. So there could be tax dues which the personal guarantor owes to the government department. So that is next in line. And then comes all other dues, so including unsecured debt. So unsecured debt will be lower in priority than government dues in the case of personal guarantor, which is not the case, I think, under section 53. Under section 53, the unsecured debt is above government dues, but here it is below government dues, which may be on the premise that it is unlikely that to individuals people are doing unsecured lending, considering the risks involved. So in a way it would discourage also unsecured lending to individuals. But this is the overall waterfall in a bankruptcy scenario. You see in the next slide we are just setting out the overall process from start to finish. So starting from a demand notice by a creditor, the whole process gets triggered, and then you have the application for initiation of resolution process which is filed, and there could be two two outcomes at that stage, that either RP is appointed and RP gives a report, and on that basis adjudication authority approves the resolution, I mean the commencement of process, or the process is not continued at that stage, and then basis the process continuing. If the process continues, then post admission creditors claims are collected, and there is opportunity to submit a repayment plan which is put to vote before creditors, and basis outcome of the decision making at the creditors level, there could either be a approval of the repayment plan and linked to a discharge order, or there could be commencement of bankruptcy process if the offer of the offer of the personal guarantor is rejected by the creditors. So this is the overall process, the CIRP process and IRP process here. IRP process is also time bound and is required to be concluded within 180 days. And if the process does not give result, then there is the natural outcome is bankruptcy. Now, moving on, in a bankruptcy of the personal guarantor, there are certain assets which are excluded. So the excluded assets, there is a concept of excluded assets, and which is linked to individual. So in the case of an individual, there will be some assets which law allows him to retain for his sustenance. So law will not take away all the assets. It will leave some assets for his sustenance and for his the dignity that the law ascribes to an individual. So if he has a single dwelling unit up to 20 lakhs in urban area, he can retain that. In rural area, it could be a lesser amount. Life insurance policies can be retained. If there are personal ornaments, those can be retained up to 1 lakh, and furniture, household. So basically what is required for sustenance. But can it be that you can seek exclusion basis a very high society status that you maintain and which you want to retain in bankruptcy? I don't think that law gives that kind of flexibility that you can maintain your social status pre-bankruptcy through claiming assets to be excluded. So that's not the intent, but the idea of excluded assets is basically that for sustenance of the individual, considering the dignity associated with the individual, certain assets are allowed to be retained. There is also say certain liabilities which are not included in the resolution process, and then even in the bankruptcy process. So there is construct also of excluded debt. Apart from excluded assets, there is also concept of excluded debt. So what constitutes excluded debt is also something you can see: liability in relation to student loan, fine imposed by a court or tribunal, any other debt which may be prescribed, liability on account of negligence. So there are certain liabilities linked obligation to pay, those are outside. Student loan is also not covered, and if a court imposes fine, those are not say liabilities which you can say those are excluded from being dealt as part of the bankruptcy process. Now, bankrupt's estate. What is a bankrupt's estate? That is the next question. That what is a bankrupt's estate? When the bankruptcy trustee, resolution professional is appointed, how does he take charge of the bankrupt's estate? Now, all properties, you see, all law is quite wide in its sweep. So here the law is prescribing that all property belonging to or vested in the bankrupt at the bankruptcy commencement stage will all be the property of bankrupt. and the capacity to exercise and initiate proceedings for all such powers will also correspondingly then come to the bankruptcy trustee, and all such properties which are belonging to bankrupt, though except excluded assets, are by and large uh, included in the bankrupt's estate. But there are certain exceptions. So as I said, excluded asset is an exception to bankruptcy estate. If the bankrupt is holding some property in trust for a third party, if he's acting as escrow agent or trustee for a third party, then those assets can't be commingled with bankrupt's estate. If there is something which is holding towards provident fund contribution, gratuity, typically what is not considered as corporate debtors assets other than excluded assets, those are also exceptions. Trusteeship arrangement, provident payment, or any payment which is collected but not transferred to government, even those can be excluded from the bankrupt's estate, which is available to bankruptcy trustee to manage. Now, you see, the law is also prescribing for certain consequences. So one is that in case of a bankrupt, his assets are taken over by bankruptcy trustee for say monetization and distribution to creditors. But the law is not leaving the bankrupt free at that stage. There is also disqualifications that he has to face thereafter once a person is declared bankrupt. So it's a high threshold for a person not to see bankruptcy as a good discharge from your liabilities, because your ability to act as trustee or representative in respect of any trust, estate, or settlement, your ability to be appointed as public servant, to be elected to any public office which is where there is election, or sitting as a member of any local authority, is forever say that disqualification will remain unless there is a recall of the bankruptcy order and there is a discharge. So a bankrupt, a person who is looking at this route to come out of his liabilities, needs to bear this in mind. And in addition to these disqualifications, there are also restrictions on the bankrupt. So a bankrupt is not eligible for during the period that he is till the time he is say getting a discharge order to act as director of any company, or directly or indirectly take part in or be concerned in any formation of a company. And he cannot travel outside India without the permission of adjudicating authority. He cannot maintain any legal action or proceedings in relation to bankruptcy debt without sanction of the adjudicating authority. He is required to give intimation. So there is a stigma attached to the bankruptcy process. It is not an easy process to get rid of your financial liabilities as an individual. There is a stigma attached to it. There is restriction on ability to hold public office. There is restriction on traveling and ability to continue business thereafter. So those are restrictions which are going to come, and so those are things which needs to be noted. Now you see, what is the personal guarantor's liability, the point that we were discussing earlier. What is the scope and extent? Now law, as you see, with the introduction of the personal guarantor insolvency regime, what is the law prescribing? The law is prescribing two things: that as far as the creditors are concerned, they have recourse against both the corporate debtor to whom they have lent, as well as against the personal guarantor. At the same time, they also have recourse against personal guarantor to recover balance dues which have not been paid by the corporate debtor. And as I was mentioning earlier, the Supreme Court has overruled all challenges in this regard on the ground that a resolution by itself will lead to discharge of the guarantor following the principles of Contract Act, because Contract Act had these principles that unless guarantor consents, any compromise whereby creditor releases the corporate debtor can also release the guarantor. But normally banks never agree on such contracts. They take upfront consent also from guarantors that compromise with corporate debtor will not release them, and the courts have also upheld that point, that by compromising with the corporate debtor, the lenders don't forego their rights against the personal guarantor. That judgment by itself takes away a large part of challenge which is there today in courts in relation to the litigation, in relation to the various litigations which are there regarding the fact that there cannot be parallel proceedings initiated against the guarantor and the against the corporate debtor, or the corporate debtor get release of corporate debtor effectively discharges the guarantor also. As I said, there have been various judgments, rulings also on this aspect. So there have been proceedings under IBC can be initiated against guarantors even before taking enforcement action. So this question is often raised by guarantors, that how can you initiate proceeding against guarantor without going after the corporate debtor. Now, the law is giving all flexibility to creditors. The law is quite creditor friendly to leave that discretion with the lenders, that who they want to proceed against first. They can proceed against any party first, they can proceed simultaneously, or they can do in a step-by-step manner. And coextensive liability of guarantor and the borrower is the real basis on which this kind of a position has been affirmed by the Supreme Court now on multiple occasions. So from a guarantor's perspective, it's something that they have to be very mindful of, and I do feel that this kind of a very clear position on the guarantor's liability would also in a long term make it quite clear for guarantors that, I mean, would they just give guarantee to induce borrowing, or they are going to be very serious in managing the business and knowing that a guarantee linked liability cannot just throw them out of the ownership but also completely wipe off long acquired debt through their say business life or professional life. So it is something which is bound to lead to lot of say a renewed approach as far as guarantees are concerned, the way say we saw in even in the context of project finance, which is largely a non-recourse structure. Promoters have given guarantee that is expected to say undergo change, because otherwise for personal guarantors also to be liable for entire debt when the debt is completely linked to business prospects is onerous. But at the same time, the responsibility on them to manage, I think, will come more. If you see in India, the model really has been that I am giving personal guarantee, so don't come and interfere in my day-to-day affairs. Now, with law being so clear, and if there is hesitation on the part of promoters to give guarantee, there is very high likelihood that banks would expect probably a seat on the board, more say in the management of the affairs of the business, even in solvency situation, more regular flow of information. All of that would be a natural expectation if there is any repositioning on the part of shareholder promoters to negotiate out of guarantee liability for future financing structures, which is expected to evolve. Moving on, say, I mean, if you see the other critical aspect which I mentioned in an insolvency scenario, what is the role of bankruptcy trustee? Because a lot of you are say from the profession as resolution professionals acting in CIRP, as well as are going to act as resolution professionals in insolvency process of individuals, uh, as well as for the bankruptcy process. Investigating the affairs of the bankrupt is again going to be a very critical aspect of resolution. You see, as far as the creditors are concerned, during the period till they invoke guarantees, till there is default or invocation of the guarantee, largely we have seen on the personal side there is very limited monitoring of the assets of the guarantor. There is possibly net worth statement which is taken at the beginning of the contractual relationship, and then on annual basis you just give net worth statements. But otherwise, on the ability of the guarantor to deal with the assets during the period of the subsistence of the guarantee liability largely has not been that much regulated, and that's why in bankruptcy it becomes one of the key duties of the bankrupt's trustee to really look at the affairs of the company, and in looking at the affairs of the company, it is important to see with whom he has transacted, who are his associates with whom he has transacted. The law prescribes for a distinction between associates and non-associates, and looks at associates and non-associates differently. So anyone, employee or employer or employee, are construed as associate of the debtor. Partner of the debtor is his associate. Trustee of a trust where the beneficiaries include, they are all associates. Relatives are associates. Immediate family is associate. Spouse or relative of a person with whom the debtor is in partnership is also an associate. Trustee where the terms of the trust confer a power on the trustee which may be exercised for the benefit of the debtor. All these people are associates, construed by effect of this law as associates of the debtor, personal guarantor, and the transactions with them are going to be scrutinized more closely for determination whether there is a preference transaction, whether there is a undervalued transaction, whether there is an extortionate transaction, and the time period also for trading, transacting with these people, there is a 2-year look back. For others it could be a 6-month look back, but for this class of associates there is a 2-year look back period. Now, like corporate insolvency, the bankruptcy trustee would also be required to assess whether there has been a preferential transaction, a transaction whose effect has been to put a creditor or a surety or guarantor for any debt of the bankrupt in a better position than what he would have been in a bankruptcy process. So if you see, I make payment to one creditor and I have not paid to others, or if I have debt from my associates and I have debt from a bank on my home loan, but I have paid my associates but I have not paid my uh, uh, unrelated party creditor, the law can treat these transactions as preferential and can annul them and require the money to be brought in. We are seeing in corporate insolvency process also such actions being taken by RP basis of the transaction audit that they do on the corporate side. Even in the personal guarantee side, those sort of audits will be required to see what are the transactions that has been done, and if there is a transaction as a result of which a person has been put in a position which will be better than the position he would have been in bankruptcy, then those transactions can be relooked. re-looked at, and there is authority in the adjudicating authority to prescribe for vesting of all those properties back in the bankruptcy trustee. So that's the element of preferential transaction. There is also what we understand as extortionate credit transaction. So if there is a transaction entered, a guarantor knowing that his liabilities may be triggered on the personal guarantee side anytime, he enters into loan transaction and agrees to pay some extortionate interest rate or completely non-market terms, whereby his assets are getting say taken away from him, but for arrangements which are non-market, and clearly which would have the effect of actually reducing his assets which could otherwise be available to his creditors, then even those transactions can be construed as extortionate credit transactions, and which is found to be unconscionable. That why would somebody in a reasonable mind enter into such transactions, and if that sort of assessment is done, then adjudicating authority can set aside those transactions also, and require that the terms of the transactions is varied, and if there are excess payments, those are required to be returned back. So that's the other leg of avoidance transactions which can be looked into. The third category would be undervalued transactions. So even where a bankrupt, before going into this process, has entered into a transaction where he is making gifts to other persons, or he has transferred assets for no consideration or for low consideration, uh, and it is not in the ordinary course of business, then it is very clearly something which can be looked at. And again, the conduct of the bankrupt in having entered into such transactions can be examined, and if it is found to be the case that these transactions have really had the effect of transferring assets which were otherwise available to the creditors, then even such transactions in the 2 years preceding making of application for bankruptcy can be examined and deemed to be undervalued transactions. So overall, as I was mentioning, I mean, the law has on the personal guarantor side moved in a direction where there is ability to put a person into resolution process, give him an opportunity to compromise, and make fair disclosure, and on that basis compromise. If that is not possible, in that situation there will be bankruptcy, and bankruptcy will come with various restrictions on the bankrupt, and there is also ability to examine the affairs of the bankrupt which have been undertaken prior to entering into the process, and on that basis the trustee can maximize the value for the creditors, and ensure that as much as he can realize out of the disclosed assets and assets which could have been transferred through avoidance transactions to third party associates, those can also be brought into the estate of the bankrupt, and on that basis there could be recovery for the creditors. So in a overall sense, with corporate insolvency regime and liquidation regime on the corporate side, and personal insolvency regime and bankruptcy regime on the personal guarantor side, as far as the corporate lending structures are concerned, there is in a way more or less clear path for banks to do the resolution recovery process, and which is time bound, managed through court appointed professional administrators, and in that sense would give certainty to both borrowers and lenders that if things don't go as per expectation, the path is quite clear, and that path on the personal side is of course new. We have not had that many cases like corporate insolvency, but the path is quite clear, and experience of corporate insolvency will definitely be a guide even in the personal insolvency process, and can lead to time bound outcomes, and that in a way would be the kind of level playing field in the long run, which is what was aspired to be introduced, brought through this law, to balance the debtor creditor relationship, which otherwise seemed to be very unbalanced in favor of the borrowers who could take advantage of the delays in court process. So overall the law is clearly giving outcomes which are time bound, and which can uh, clearly create disincentives, and creates that overall level playing field, which is what the intention of the law has been really in a overall sense. So those were my thoughts on the personal insolvency side, and if there are any queries, or if anyone wanted to make any point observations, happy to hear your thoughts.
Saurav ji,
Yes.
hello, can you hear
Yes.
me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah. One question. Whenever we are making application under Section 95,
Yes.
any creditor is making application, and they are appointing some resolution professional. Court is not taking any cognition of that, and they are appointing their own resolution professional. So, can we have recourse under Section 98 to replace that resolution professional?
So you are referring to a creditor whose nominee is not being accepted, and then can the creditor replace the court appointed resolution professional through its own resolution professional? Is that your question? Because under 98, as I see, creditors, if they think that the resolution professional is required to be replaced, they can apply to adjudicating authority, and adjudicating authority can allow. And as I see the practice evolving, I don't think that the adjudicating authority will be resistant to creditor prescribed administrators. They will be more comfortable that if creditors want somebody, he should be managing, because ultimately these processes are creditor in control model, and in a creditor in control model administered through administered through resolution professional administrator, I think courts will be more comfortable to let creditors decide, and if they take a decision, they'll be happy to allow the administrator to be of creditor's choice. I think it is a new phenomena, and I think the context has to be laid out well before adjudicating authority. But going by CIRP experience, I think this.
May I come in?
Yes, sir.
Convener, with your permission, may I come in?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Okay. So, Saurabh ji, the resolution professional is supposed to file a report with the adjudicating authority. Will the personal guarantor get a chance to file an affidavit and reply with the adjudicating authority as well?
Sorry, could you elaborate this further? I mean, what do you have in mind, and what is the stage that you are referring to?
Okay. So the point that I'm making, sir, is that, see, the RP, when he prepares the report, he takes inputs from the personal guarantor, and based on that, he files a report
and on the basis of the report, the adjudicating authority decides whether, or he recommends rather, to accept or to reject the application. Right now, when the matter is before the adjudicating authority, will the personal guarantor also have the right to file an affidavit in reply before the honorable adjudicating authority?
See, if you see the process of natural justice, courts are taking reply, while what is prescribed is that court to decide on the basis of default. So notice which is given if the debt is not cleared, and then RP's report basis that court is to decide. But what we see is that courts are also quite open to hearing to parties. I don't see them adopting an approach that they will not listen to a party who has a submission. They may decide strictly by what the court prescribes, but in deciding they may hear. So at least so far, in few cases that have gone through this process, we have seen that the affidavit of reply from the guarantor side has been considered, though most of those were at a time when it was very clear that can you do corporate insolvency, personal insolvency parallelly, or insolvency can only be done after corporate insolvency. Those were grounds which were being taken. Now most of those issues are resolved. So what will a personal guarantor want to say in such affidavits is also going to be important. But having said that, I do feel that if somebody wants to make a submission, the court may consider it in its discretion, which the law allows it.
Sir, I have two more points to make. Hello. Thank
Yes,
you.
please.
Thank you, sir. Sir, I have two more points to make. Hello. Now,
Yes, go ahead.
hello. Okay. So I say further that, sir, see, this insolvency law came into existence in December 2016. Now, the personal guarantees have been given prior to 2016. So if the guarantees have been given prior to 2016, they have been given on the basis of the assurances which are contained in the Contract Act with respect to rights of a surety. There are substantial rights with respect to a surety, section 134, section 141, right? Now, all those rights as given by the Contract Act, they are all compromised. There is no right of subrogation, no stepping into the shoes, and the resolution plan is approved by the financial creditor who then pursues you for the balance amount. It is upon the financial creditor to accept a resolution plan. I, being hit by section 29A, I am not supposed to bid for the resolution plan.
I'm not able to hear now.
He
Agarwal,
has
you are
lost
not
his
audible. You are not audible.
totally he has lost his voice.
Praveen, bhai, we
For
should continue. The
guarantees which
time
have
is
been given prior to commencement of IBC, sir. This is one thing. Secondly, I want to make a point. Now, suppose there is a creditor who is enforcing his right against a personal guarantor. So there could be two situations. One, the principal debtor is subject to IBC, or the principal debtor is not subject to IBC. If the principal debtor is subject to IBC, then no subrogation is available. If the principal debtor is not subject to IBC, then the rights as given under Contract Act, rights of a surety, will all be available to the guarantor. Thus, is it the intention of the legislature surety? I really doubt this. I think, my personal opinion, in due course of time, this should not sustain. You cannot kill a person many times. The provisions of IBC has been implemented against the personal guarantor are like hanging a person many times. Every section 134, 141, which is being, which is not being implemented.
Sir, Rajat sir, in between your voice is not there, and I totally lost.
I don't know, Doctor, whether Mr. Saurabh has understood the question.
Yes, I
Because in
think
between for a long time the voice is lost.
Stepping into the
Whatever
shoes
you
of the
understood, sir, can
creditor
you
and
try
enjoy
please?
all the properties which are otherwise given away in a resolution plan. I
Sir,
don't
he
know
is
where it
taking your
takes the
question.
personal guarantors.
He is taking your question, sir.
Yes, sir. Over to you.
Yes, yes. No, see, what you are saying are all valid points. You see the way and the pace at which the insolvency law came, it has really not given, say, that kind of time and space to
Saurabh,
judiciary.
I'm not able to hear you, sir. Extremely
Can
sorry on that. I'm not able to hear you at all.
What about others? Can they hear me?
We can hear
Yes,
you, sir.
we
We
can
can
hear
hear
you,
you. There is
sir.
a
Sir,
connectivity
Rajan
problem.
bhai, problem
Yes,
आपके end पे.
we can hear, sir.
Yeah. So you see the way the law has come and at the pace at which it has come. I think the law has been totally interpreted in a lender-friendly way. You see, last 5 years, we are yet to come across any judgment which really puts any fetter on the rights of lenders while taking any action under insolvency, whether their conduct in the COC, whether it is their ability to act against multiple obligors, whether their overall conduct in running the auction process. I think there has been less questioning by courts, except some of the recent instances where we have seen 12-way proposals courts have questioned. So only aspects that courts have really been considered is creditors recovery and value maximization for that. Now to your questions, that under principles of contract law, can you crucify a guarantor whose business also you have forcibly taken because he gave a guarantee on the premise that he is the owner of the business. Now if he ceases to remain owner of the business, does equity allow him to not get discharged? Does it not allow him that it's a involuntary process through which his ownership has been taken away, and therefore the guarantees also in that situation should not continue? Now that is an aspect that courts have to consider. So far what we have seen, if you see the Lalit Kumar judgment, very clear that the mere resolution of a corporate debtor by itself will not discharge guarantor of his liability. That is what the court is saying, and this is Supreme Court. So the apex court is quite clear that a mere compromise will not discharge the guarantor of his liabilities. He has to individually account for the balance dues and pay for it, and there is no shelter or defense on account of uh, 29A restrictions or subrogation principles not coming into picture, because uh, the interpretation of the court currently is that it is the person who is owner of the company is directly responsible for business failure. Now for courts to evolve and mature, maybe the insolvency law will also take time for to develop jurisprudentially. There could be business losses which are for external factors, and in that situation, if you are taking away somebody's ownership, then can you put him under accountability to also pay the entire debt? That is the question. But as of now, the answer to that is that the person will remain liable. The ownership seizing, notwithstanding the liability will remain and it will strictly be governed by contract and the resolution plan. And in that sense, I mean, it could be something which is onerous, but maybe it is also in the way owners have dealt with their businesses. I mean, it's also a comment by judiciary on their assessment of conduct by the owner shareholders. So maybe 5 years down the line there may be some rethinking, but currently, at least the way the law stands, the liability is coextensive and is not discharged on account of compromise or resolution with the corporate debtor.
May I ask a question? Yes, this is Manoj Agarwal. Yes, sir. This is regarding benefit of section 32A. In case of personal guarantee, if there is a resolution, 32A plays its role or not?
Say 32A, when you say 32A was really intended to give protection to the corporate entity on account of change of control from the past actions, past offenses which have been committed by company or its shareholders. So in that sense, this law, obviously there's no change of control context. The 32A protection is in the context of change of control. So if as a manager or in management of a company, a person has committed some offenses, merely because he is put into bankruptcy, there is no protection against those actions. So those will independently follow, and the law will independently operate on the civil side through this process and criminal side as per the applicable laws on the criminal side.
Any other question?
Sir, sir, my question is queries related to report of resolution professional. Generally, sir, financial creditors are filing application against personal guarantors, and the resolution professional have the copy of application and the agreements only. And it is a rare chances that we get any data from the personal guarantors. So, sir, my query is, what are the responsibility associated with this report of the RP? Whether he is liable for any wrong reporting or any other reports, incorrect reports.
See, I would put it this way, that if you are not getting adequate information, just have application and whatever information the creditors have given. Now, in that situation, I think two determinations that are required to be made. Either the resolution professional is recommending that the individual be put through resolution process and given a chance to say repay and get discharged, or you are recommending directly bankruptcy process. These could be two things that I can see are basically conclusions that an RP can be expected to draw at that stage. So if you have inadequate information because of which you are not able to assess whether insolvency is required to be done or not, and directly the person can be put into bankruptcy, that could be one way to deal with it, or bring out these facts that, I mean, because of insufficiency of information you are not able to make assessment, and therefore the guarantor be required to be directed to give more information. So to protect, I think that can be given, but it's a pre-insolvency stage process, so I don't think that there can be onerous liabilities on the person assessing at this stage. But I think to safeguard your interest, you should just make adequate disclosures, and on that basis come to the recommendation that you are making, whether to continue IRP or to put the person in bankruptcy.
Okay, okay, sir. Thank you.
Sir, I have one
Any other
question.
questions?
I have one question. Sir, a promoter has given guarantee is a director in four companies, say A, B, C, D, and in 4 companies he has given personal guarantee. Suppose the company A goes into insolvency and subsequently his guarantee is revoked. So what happens to the other guarantees which he has given in B, C, D company? Whether separate proceedings will go on after this is closed, or once that company goes into liquidation, again the process will start.
No, see, as far as an individual is concerned, the law, it is prescribing two things, that if a personal guarantor has been called upon to pay and he defaults, then he can be put in bankruptcy. Now, if a person has given guarantee for say 4 businesses that he is running, and in one business there is a claim and he is not able to pay, if the creditors in other 3 businesses, if they claim on him, then he has to pay them also. There is a process of claim to be collected by the RP also once he is in place. So at that stage that he is making the claim, the other person, other say claimants on the other guarantees that he has given, they will have an option to come and make claim, but it has to be on a liquidated claim that you can file, a liquidated liability that you can file claims. So if it's a situation where say other companies are not in default and you have no reason to claim on the guarantor, then it is possible that you may not be able to claim in this process, and the asset may go to only the parties who are otherwise having claims against the guarantor. So that possibility is there, and the beneficiaries of guarantees in other businesses will have to take a call whether they want to continue with the company, because against guarantor you can only go after companies in default. Without company being in default, how do you go? So it's a decision for banks or lenders to take, but it could be a possible scenario that I mean, they may not be able to recover fully on the guarantor side if they are not facing default, and they will end up say having recourse largely against the corporate debtor in such situation.
In that case, suppose the B company is today not under CRP, and after 1 year if it come into the CRP, then the guarantor may face the process again after 12 months. Once discharged, again he will fall in the trap of.
If he has got discharge order, but you see, if he has gone into bankruptcy and his assets are liquidated, then what happens?
Yeah, again after 2 years, suppose B company, then again that B company will chase him for the personal insolvency, because here the banker is separate.
But by then the asset may not be there.
The asset may not be there, but then the process may go on.
Process may go on, but you see, time and cost is involved in this. So if you have gone through bankruptcy once, likelihood of assets remaining is very limited. But if there are new acquired assets, he starts with his knowledge, experience, the guarantor starts business again, or is working and earns an estate. Those can again be put into bankruptcy, rightly, sir, what you are saying, but the possibility of loss to the creditor with a not liquidated claim when the first round of bankruptcy started against guarantor can also be a possibility.
Yes.
If we declare, may I disturb, sir? In this
Yes, sir.
discussion?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Praveen
Yes, Devan bhai.
Yeah, is there a possibility that these 3 maybe non-liquidated liabilities, maybe guarantees, are declared as liabilities by the person, by the guarantor, and his discharge of these liabilities? Is there any legal process in this form? Although they are contingent until the same has been enforced, but can it be by any way, any legal form, maybe disclosed as liabilities and a discharge certificate be taken of them?
Sorry, I was not very clear with the question. If you can just clarify or repeat, please.
Mr. Z has given personal guarantees in company ABCD.
Right.
Now, company A is under CIRP, and Mr. Z has been brought as a personal guarantor into NCLT.
Right.
Now for company BCD, possibly the guarantees are not yet enforced.
Right.
Is there a legal possibility that he can disclose these contingent liabilities as liabilities in his statement of liabilities, and his discharge certificate discharges him of liabilities of company B, C and D also?
As far as the claim is concerned, you can't claim unless the liability is liquidated. Now, contingent liability, if it is put and you can't make a claim on that liability, then it's a bit inequitable position that if I can't claim, then how can there be an extinguishment? In CIRP process, at least, even a contingent claimant can claim, and then as part of resolution process or liquidation process, there is a extinguishment. This is the plan offered. But here, if you have a situation that it's a unliquidated liability which cannot be claimed under this process, but you can seek discharge, then it's inequitable on the beneficiary. So I think, I mean, it's early days and there is not enough say judicial precedents on this, but I do see that it's a inequitable position. So like what Navandarji was mentioning, the claim should continue. Whether he will be able to recover anything, as the estate may all be say liquidated and distributed, it is another thing. But you should not have the have a scenario as a beneficiary that you can't claim, but your claim as a contingent liability can be extinguished as part of discharge order.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions? Pravinji, we will conclude the session.
Yes, sir. We can conclude the session.
Yes, sir. So I would like to thank Advocate Kumar Saurabh for taking his time on Friday evening and enlightening all the members of WRC IBC study group on personal insolvency, which is an evolving subject. And there are a lot of questions are yet to be answered, as all the no judgment, clear judgments have come, and a process is yet to be done. So only a landmark judgment that was of Lalit Kumar Jain had come. So with this, on behalf of WRC, I would like to thank and also our core members who have taken up the matter in respect of fees in liquidation and insolvency and other going concern. That has added value to our knowledge. On behalf of WRC, I would like to thank each and all the participants who have done active participants in today's session. Thank you. The recording shall be available on the WRC website also of the session.
Thanks, Saurabhji. Thanks all members.
Thank you very much.
Sir, thanks all.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Thank you for having me today with you. Thank you very much.